Lunch was delicious. Did you guys have a good lunch? So you guys are the remnant. So I love speaking to the remnant. You know what I mean? That's how you separate, right, the remnant from the rest, the ones who stick around after lunch. So God bless you guys. All right. So what I'm going to do real quick, as soon as the PowerPoint gets up there, and I'm going to just talk to you guys right here, if that's okay with you guys. All right. And I'm going to be cognizant. If I see anyone falling asleep, I'm going to land the plane, okay? Because I understand what happens after lunch. All right? So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this ministry that I'm a part of called F5 Challenge. So one of the things I'm very passionate about is fitness and health and exercise. You know, one of my favorite triathletes, his name is Lou Hollander. He was the oldest Ironman at the age of 85 or 84 until someone just beat his record. A Japanese man beat his record. So there's always someone who's trying to be the oldest Ironman. Anyways, he says, whatever you do in your 40s will determine what you do in your 80s. All right? I'm 48. I've got friends. They got all kinds of aches and pains in their bodies. I praise God, I don't have any. And I think it's because I've been moving all my life. So I want to encourage you guys to move. Our tagline is made to move for this ministry. I'm just curious, is this being live streamed or not? If you say no, it is? Okay. Oh, thank you so much. So anyways, many years ago, a friend of mine invited me. He was in his late 60s and invited me to go run the Grand Canyon from rim to rim to rim. It's a 48-mile run. And I was like, okay, that sounds absolutely miserable and awesome all at the same time. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to have to train for 4 months to do this, just me and this one guy running together doesn't sound like my cup of tea. So I started inviting friends to come. And we had 110 people show up. Not to come run the Grand Canyon, but to hike it and just see parts of it. And that weekend, Sue was there. So the weekend, we had worship, we had get-together, and we just had a great time. 8 of us attempted the rim to rim to rim, of which 6 of us finished it. 30 people hiked one way to the other, just 23-mile hike from the north to the south rim. A lot of people did just 18 miles, 12 miles, or 6 miles. So there was something for everybody. And when we were done, people said, we want more. So that's how F5 Challenge got started. That summer, I happened to run into a friend I hadn't seen in a long time, and she's not Adventist. And I said, hey, we're going to go hiking. You want to come join us for the weekend? So she came with us, and I told my friends in the group, she's not Seventh-day Adventist. I found it's very important to let people know that, okay? And we just had a great time. The second day, she started asking us about what we believe, and when I dropped her off at her car, she said, can I take you up on that offer for Bible studies? So, you know, it's easier to invite someone to go hiking than it is to invite them to come to church. You get the point that I'm making? That summer, I had 2 people message me, and they said, I'm not religious, can I come? And I was like, I just love this. We have a Seventh-day Adventist group getting together for an adventure, and we have non-Adventist people who want to come. So you can understand what F5 Challenge is all about. It's friendship evangelism, and it's using our hobbies, our passions for health to connect with people. And people come to our events, and they have a blast. I have a friend I invited, and I'll share more during the message, but I just invited him to come. He had no interest in God. Now he's a part of the team. He's on fire for the Lord. He came. He met a bunch of people, had a great time. You know, we don't drink, we don't get high, and we're having a great time. We have activities, fellowship, fun, hike, adventures. And now he's in love with the Lord, and he's active in doing ministry. So that's what F5 Challenge is all about. It stands for 5 F's. Faith, fellowship, fitness, fortitude, and fun, which is the spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, social, the 5 components of human well-being. So what happens is, you know, when you come out of college, let's say you go to an Adventist college, but you come out of college, all of a sudden you come to your local church, it's slim pickings. There's not a lot of people your age. And of course, all these young adults are leaving the church. So I would encourage you to get your young adults plugged into F5 Challenge. Now, this is not just for young adults. It's for all ages. Right now, we're going to be climbing Mount St. Helens. My buddy, Clark, is 73. He's climbing with us. He started to, kind of stop climbing so much because all his friends were dying off. You know, they're not active, but he still wants to do this. All of a sudden, he found us. He just joined the church, in the last 10 years, I think. So he's our buddy. And that's the cool thing about hobbies is that hobbies transcends any age barrier. I went to one church I preached, and this guy came up to me. I think he's late 60s, and he's a marathon runner. And we just started chatting. We got each other's numbers. You know, and so it doesn't matter what age. And I rock climb with young people who are 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. So that's the kind of cool thing about having a hobby, because it instantly bridges the gap. Or I can meet someone my exact age and have nothing in common. You know what I mean? Now, I want to mention something because someone had mentioned this to me from the earlier message. Why would anyone go rock climbing? You know what I mean? So, first of all, something like that kind of an accident is very, very rare. And then for someone to witness it is even more rare. It's so rare. But the thing is, she made a mistake. She did do some things incorrectly. But it's just like walking. Walking is safe, but you walk off an overpass onto an oncoming freeway, it's dangerous. Driving a semi is safe if you're trained, but if you put a 5-year-old behind the wheel of a semi-truck, it is a moving missile. So, rock climbing is safe. I've climbed all over. I've been on El Cap, Half Dome. I've been all over the place climbing. I love to climb. And I used to climb with my daughter. And so climbing is safe as long as you just take all the precautions. But little things like that can happen, and they do happen. So I'll tell you this, I'm careful as it is, but now I'm even more careful. Like now, whoever's belaying me, I'm going to make sure it's not some newbie belaying me. You know what I mean? So it's been a good wake-up call for all of us, and I'm still processing this whole thing. And so anyways, but because what I don't want to do is shed a bad light on climbing, because it's such a great outdoor activity. Yes? Great question. We have a website, f5challenge.org. The best way to join is on Facebook, F5 Challenge members. It's just F5 Challenge members, and anyone can be on it. Now, it's just easy there because then you can see pictures from our weekend, and everyone can communicate, and you get to know each other. So what does it look like when you come to an F5 event? You walk into an F5 event, and you'll walk away with 30 new friends, or if you're an introvert, you'll walk away with 10 new friends. You will make friends. And people today, loneliness is ubiquitous. It's an epidemic. People are lonely. And so what we do is when you come to our event, instead of being on your phone all weekend long, we're putting you in interactive icebreakers. We're doing things in groups. We're going out and do stuff. And so like, for example, yesterday, we just did a yard makeover. We're working together. We spend the whole weekend. You just walk away. You just made a bunch of new friends. Yes, Sue?
I also want to say I love how it was layered because even within F5, you didn't mention that the F5 is like the refresh button on the computer, and there's 5 layers. It's F5, so beginner, intermediate, expert, then elite, and ultra elite. So again, it's 5.
Oh, I should have her give this promo. There's something for everybody. If you're a couch potato, you're going to come, and there's something for you. And then for the person who wants the elite, the uber difficult extreme challenge, we got that for you too. So when we were at the Grand Tetons, what we had was the uber level 5 was we biked 20 miles to the lake at midnight. We swam across the lake. It was about over a mile. And then we shot out for the summit of the Grand Tetons. So it was an incredible challenge. Then the next group was shooting just to climb the Tetons. And then some people, the couch potatoes, are just doing a 5-mile hike around the lake. So there is something for everyone. I want to say that, I want to reiterate, it's for all ages. So it's not a singles ministry. And that's why the single people love this ministry. Because you can come and meet a lot of people, but no one wants to go to a singles retreat. Do you know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to go to that. But here, you're just going to meet, and the thing is, even though it's open to all ages, the majority of the people are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that are single. Probably 60, 70%. And then you got people like me, married, kids, coming, so you don't feel that stigma. That makes sense. Okay, thank you. Is that better? Oh, that one's a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna just shoot a. This was our first Grand Canyon event right after we were done. This was the 6 of us who did the rim to rim to rim, and I was one of the few that actually trained for it, so I didn't find it difficult. But some of these guys are very in good shape, but they did not train for this, so they were dying. And they said it was the hardest thing they ever did, and one guy said it was the stupidest thing he ever did. He's an ENT surgeon, but what's that? Oh, okay, the Grand Canyon has the north rim and the south rim, and it's 23 miles. So for a lot of people, it's a bucket list to hike from the north to the south or the south to the north. So we started on the south, and we actually ran all the way to the north all through the night, and then turned around and came all the way back in the middle of the night. That was for the people who wanted the most extreme challenge. So anyways, I'll tell you a fun story on this. When I was coming back, I started in the latest group because I actually trained for it. There's only 2 of us who actually trained for it. And you want to train for something like this, then you enjoy yourself. You don't train, it's going to be miserable. And as I was coming back, my goal is to catch all the other ones who started first. And I came across 2 of my buddies, and they were wiped out. They still had probably about 15 miles to go. They were wiped out. And both of them told me, their wives told them, I don't think you can do this. That's all a man needs. You tell a man you can't do this, and you know what? They completed it. So this is for the ladies. You want to get your husband to do something, just tell him, I don't think you can do it, and he'll get it done. So our internal, oh yes.
Is this only local?
It's all over the U.S. and it's popping up on different parts of the United States. We're working with the NAD now. We're working with the NAD health department. So sometimes you'll see some of their stuff. It'll say F5 Challenge. And we're going to be at the NAD called conference for the pastors. It's kind of like their camp meeting, putting on fitness events for them. I'll do a talk on health and fitness to get them motivated to get into health. So it's growing. This thing is really taking off. 3ABN, I'll be doing an interview on 3ABN in June. So it's been 5 years now, but it's now just starting to take off. So you imagine you go on our F5 Challenge Facebook group, click events. It'll list all our events that are locally happening. So like if you clicked on it a month ago, you're like, oh, they're climbing Mount St. Helens. They're going to be here this whole weekend. Next month, we're going mountain biking in Santa Cruz. We're going to be doing one Memorial Day weekend. We're going mountain biking in Seattle. And then on Sunday, we're going to all hike up to base camp at Mount Rainier. And there's mission trips coming up. There's stuff left and right. You can go on there and put up your own event. You could be like, we're going to go hike the 8 caves on Saturday afternoon, so-and-so. Who wants to join? And then the local F5ers will see that, and they'll come together. So it's kind of a meetup that brings people together. Yep, yes.
Do you have something for families?
Any one of these, you can bring your whole family. Okay, you can bring your family to any one of them, but you just have to pick and choose. Like our mission trips, yeah, whole families. Our main events, people come with little 1-year-olds. And then you just have to pick and choose what you can do with your kids, you know what I mean? Like obviously, if we're trying to climb Mount St. Helens, that's just not a good one for you to bring your kids to, you know what I mean? Or, someone has to stay behind and watch the kids. But all our events are for all ages. When we go rafting, sometimes it's limited. You got to be 7 and over. So it just depends. But we geared this for all ages. Our internal motto is fitness for witness. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to use our fitness to witness. And so I'm doing this intro because I want you to understand about F5 Challenge, but I also want you to kind of understand this is our internal motto. That means we don't go around shouting this. So there's always a well-meaning member of our F5 Challenge in our Facebook group. Yay, F5, fitness for witness. And we're like, please don't do that. And then we'll delete your comment. If you start arguing about diet and salvation, we'll delete it. Because the thing is, I've got friends who are non-Adventists. A lot of my non-Adventist friends are part of F5 Challenge. You're like, right? You'd be amazed at how much this happens. Because see, what Seventh-day Adventists are, we're used to being in a bubble where we think everybody is Seventh-day Adventist. And I'll share stories of embarrassing things that happen. So my whole passion is to educate Seventh-day Adventists how we can be winsome witnesses. Because if we're winsome, maybe we can just win some to Jesus instead of freaking them out. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so that's our internal motto. This was at our Grand Teton event. This was at Joshua Tree, and we do these things all over. This was in Sedona, one of our last. So I love this quote by Ellen White. Let every worker in the master's vineyard study, plan, devise methods to reach the people where they are. We must do something out of the common course of things. Isn't that pretty cool? So I believe that's what F5 Challenge is. I mean, when you have ASI and Army Bible Camp and GYC, these things are designed to bring Adventist people to these things. They're not designed to bring non-Adventist people. Well, where do you bring a non-Adventist person? This is it. So like our speakers know to share messages that are open, that will resonate well and build bridges with people who are not Adventists, who may be atheists. And I'm going to share lots and lots of stories, okay? So I'll share a fun story. Tuesday nights before COVID was the night that I would run with a bunch of my running buddies. We meet at a running store. And I like to kind of gravitate to the new guy who shows up. The new guy shows up, they don't really know anyone. The rest of us, we all kind of know each other. So I started running with this guy, his name's Charlie Rocket. What a good name for a runner. It's better than like Calvin Kim, you know what I mean? So anyways, he was fast, and I said, hey, I want you to help me to get faster. So we just clicked like that. We just connected. And we became friends, and anyways, I was like, he was new to town. His wife was living in Japan. He's a Caucasian guy. His wife's Japanese. And he's living out here by himself for a while. And I said, hey, we're going hiking with our church. Do you want to come? He goes, yeah. Now, I lived here. He lives here. Our church is up here. It's really out of the way for me to go to church, pick him up, and come back. And so I took a risk, and I said, we're going to be going right after church. It would be easier if I just picked you up and took you to church, and then we go hiking. And he goes, I'll come to church with you. I was like, awesome. So he came to church, great guy, everyone liked him, and we had a great hiking experience. Just a little while afterwards, he sent me an email. A dear and wonderful friend of mine who's not even in the church recommended that I confess to you the depression that I can't work through. Training and helping people, being the encouraging coach, is probably the only thing that is keeping me sane. While I know I can help you succeed, I'm fighting a mental illness that admitting would even shame my wife. I can't help you if I'm not a model for your own success. I want to support you so much. I've been bragging to my friends how I met this wonderful individual whose life I can help change. I think I need to be in your church. Maybe I shouldn't be telling you this. The suicide helpline guy was a disaster. Can I confide in you without being judged? I feel your church and you might be the only ones I can confide in. But I don't know where to turn except the church. Your congregation, even for one day, helped keep me alive. I'm sorry to unload this on you because you wanted a running buddy and have inherited a suicide. He's apologizing, and I'm just like, praise the Lord, that God allowed me to be right there and allow our paths to cross. So anyways, let's begin with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I'm so thankful, Lord, for your rich blessings in our lives, for the opportunities that you give us. And I just want to invite your Holy Spirit to be here with us, your presence to be here in our midst as we study this most important topic of soul winning. This we pray in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Now, one of my favorite quotes goes like this. Thank you. There is no greater bliss on this side of heaven than in what? Any guesses? There is no greater, just think about this. No greater bliss. Bliss means perfect happiness. No greater bliss on this side of heaven than in this. Than in winning souls to heaven or Christ. Think about that. Who's done some blissful things? I've done some blissful things. Standing on top of Mount Rainier is pretty blissful, Steve could tell you. Doing incredible, just traveling places, being in exotic locations. These are blissful things, but there's nothing more blissful. You know what? I can attest to the veracity of the statement. There's nothing more blissful. When you get to heaven, what's going to matter, right? So anyways, but the thing is, here's the irony of life. We spend years and years learning all these subjects in high school that are mostly useless. How many of you use a quadratic formula since you finished high school? Never. Stats, calculus, and yet the most important decisions of your life is giving your life to Jesus. Who you're going to marry is the second most important decision of life. And the third is your career. Because second and number 3 decisions affect the number 1 decision. There's no instruction given on the number 2 and most important decision. It's left to chance. Hopefully you fall in love with the right person. And then people go to college and they have no idea what to do. And some people end up in dead-end jobs. So this is something that I like to talk to when I talk to high school students, especially young adults. Many people think that career is your second most important decision. It's not. Because marriage lasts a lot longer than your career. Marriage can wreck lives. It can wreck the lives of your children. It can wreck your own life. It can wreck the lives of your parents. I've seen parents' lives wrecked because of children's bad marriages. And yet there's very little instruction given on that. Isn't that kind of wild? Now, I'm not going to give the marriage talk because I have the marriage talk. We won't go into that. And career is important too because these things will affect your usefulness for God in serving God. But anyways, the most important decision is serving God, and yet how much instruction have you gotten on how to be an effective soul winner? 0 for most of you. Unless you've gone to a Bible college. I've been to Adventist schools all my life. You go to graduate school, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of training to learn to do something that's all temporary. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I'm so thankful that Annette and Stan gave me this opportunity to share because it's the one topic that I love to share about. Now, we're told that this is the highest of all sciences, the work of winning men from sin to holiness. It's the highest of all sciences. And how many of you have taken Soul Winning 101? Hardly none of us. Isn't that kind of crazy? And so what we're doing is we're left to explore and learn on our own, and we make all kinds of mistakes because we just don't know how. So many of you, if you're like me, you've made a lot of mistakes, and you learn from your own mistakes. So I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of my own mistakes, and hopefully you'll learn tips and stuff that are useful because now, by the grace of God, I've gotten better at not making these mistakes, and I've gotten more effective at what works well. Common one that people do is called fire hosing. Okay? When you turn on a fire hose, you got to turn that thing on slowly, not just. You know who does that? New converts do that. New converts, when you get them baptized, they need to go through a class not to do that, because what they do is they start fire hosing all their family members, telling everyone what the mark of the beast is, who the Antichrist is, and then they spend 30 years trying to repair those relationships with their family members because they think they're crazy. See, people are like, they understand what I'm talking about. So, my friend jokes, she's a pastor's wife, she jokes that she could write a book called I forget, how's it go? How new converts, for a book that could be written by every new convert, like how to lose friends and how to alienate family members or something like that. You get it? So, I think this is an important topic to talk about. And the thing is, I understand, it's almost intuitive and instinctive. When you know truth, you're compelled to share the truth and set someone straight. They believe that you're going to be tortured by God forever and ever and ever, and they believe all these things, and you know the truth. But what happens in doing so, sometimes we end up, basically burning bridges instead of building bridges. And we want to build bridges, right? Not burning bridges. One time, there was a gal, she was a Jewish friend of mine. I just happened to read something from a Sabbath School Quarterly that Sabbath morning. It was about Paul writing something about the Jews, and it was a beautiful Bible text, and I just put it on my Facebook. She was the first one to comment, and she goes, "That is anti-Semitic." Yeah, you could just literally put something from the Bible on your page, and to a Jewish person, it could be very anti-Semitic. Now, I could be right all day. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be righteous? I deleted it. I apologized to her. I was given a talk like this, and I had a woman in our audience arguing with me, like, nope, but I was like, for me, my relationship with this gal is more important than whether I have the right to put up a Bible text, you know what I mean? So, I've been learning. One of my Bible study contexts, the first study I did on was this topic of hell. It's such a beautiful truth about hell, isn't it? It really shows what a beautiful God we have. But if you love that doctrine of hell, you may come across just sounding absurd to them. And she never came back. And so I'll give you tips on that, okay? So you understand even a beautiful truth could just turn somebody off. So this topic is inexhaustible. I do a whole talk just on friendship evangelism. I do a whole talk on literature evangelism. I do a talk on, and so since I only have this one session, I'm going to give you just a little bit of each, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to take away with many of the key concepts, and that it will hopefully be a blessing to you. So during our first Grand Canyon event, I brought a friend of mine. She's not Adventist. She just finished hiking the Grand Canyon 23 miles. Just had a blast. And she's done, and she's up at the rim, and she wants to go get a nice, juicy, fat burger. Because when you're done with that hike, you're hungry. She just wants to get a nice burger. And one of the people in our group, a well-meaning person, it's always with good intentions, said, "You should try the veggie burger." She goes, "Okay." She wants a juicy, fat burger. And he said, "You really should try the veggie burger. It's really good." She goes, Yeah. I'm pretty sure he said it 3 times. At which point she goes, "I'm not an Adventist." At which point he started apologizing, and she told me this on the way home. So, it's like, when we do Bible studies, when do we talk about health? Is that the first thing or the last thing? It's way on the end. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I'm just giving you examples of just situations that I've had to run across with, and I'm just like, oh my. And so it's good to talk about these things. Do you see what I'm saying? His intentions were totally good, right? One time would have been enough. You know what I mean? She's got, just, let the gal eat what she wants to eat. You know what I mean? And so anyway, she comes to another event of ours a few weeks later, and she brings a friend of hers who's not Seventh-day Adventist. So that's great. Now, I wish our event started with rock climbing or hiking. So you kind of start to build bridges, but unfortunately, most of our events start on Friday night. It makes sense. You finish work, get out there, and we were at Smith Rock in Oregon, and we had Vespers. And we don't even like to use that word Vespers when we're inviting our non-Adventist friends, because what's a Vespers? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to get you to think. You see how we're trying to think? The way I think is, how does it sound to somebody who's atheist or a non-believer? Anyways, after we were done, we were sitting around the fire, and my friend said, when we were on that hike in the Grand Canyon, they were talking about how Jesus is going to come back to earth through the belt of the Orion. That sounds like a crock of, and she stopped saying anything. And I just want to crawl in a hole and die. And I'm like, who's talking to you about these things? You get the point that I'm making. You know what I mean? And it's because we're not thinking evangelism. We're just thinking about, I'm just comfortable, I'm going to talk about anything I want to do. You know what I'm saying? And so part of what I'm trying to do with F5 is when I have an audience that's a church-going audience, is to be able to talk about these things so that we're more cognitive of these things. So, I want us to learn from Jesus, the master evangelist himself, just certain keys and tips that I think will help us. Now, John chapter 3, Jesus is speaking to someone. Who's Jesus speaking to in John chapter 3? That's right. John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he's speaking to Nicodemus. John chapter 4, who is he speaking to? The woman at the well. Okay? So if you look at these two stories, there's only one thing that they both have in counter, Nicodemus and the woman at the well. There's only one thing. that they had a one-on-one encounter with Jesus, and that's it. Everything else is completely antithetical. It means completely opposite. Can you tell me the differences if we do a compare and contrast between Nicodemus and the woman at the well? She was poor and an outcast. He was well respected, educated. I mean, everything. You start from the simplest thing. Just start with male and female. One's male, one's female. One's married. One had over 5 husbands, and the one she was living with is not her husband. One's Samaritan, one is a Jew. Nighttime, daytime. Nicodemus, Jesus didn't go looking for Nicodemus. Nicodemus came looking for Jesus. With the woman, Jesus deliberately went to go look for the woman. And if you go through, Jesus met her at a well in a valley. Jesus meets Nicodemus in an elevated place. So you get the point that I'm making. Everything could be as far different. One, as we mentioned, had much wealth, one didn't. But anyway, so what's the point of this? Okay? What do you pull out of this? It's about the audience. With Nicodemus, he came looking for Jesus because he'd been watching Jesus. Nicodemus, Jesus had already won his confidence. That's why he wanted an audience with Jesus. So what you notice is Jesus is very direct with Nicodemus. He goes, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, you must be born again." He says it again. "Verily, verily, I say unto you, you must be born of water and, of the Spirit." And then he later says, "Marvel not that I said unto you, you must be born again." Jesus is very direct. And he says to him, Nicodemus saith unto him, Jesus says unto him, "Art thou a master of Israel, and knowest not these things?" Thank you so much. You should know better. So the thing is, because Jesus has already won his confidence, Jesus is very direct. Whereas with the woman, what approach does he take with the woman? A totally different approach. He's trying to what? Win her confidence first. You see that? And what we do is we kind of take a one-size approach to everybody. So the thing is, if I was eating that meat burger, Annette, you can come up to me and go, "Come on, Calvin, you know the health message. You know you shouldn't be eating that." You know what I mean? Yeah. That look. But you know what I'm saying? Going back to my friend Sue's story. And so we have to know the audience, and with her, he wants to win her respect. The other thing has to do with timing. Okay? What can you tell me about timing? Here's a couple things that come out from the story. One is Nicodemus, even though he was convicted and it spoke to him, he hid the truth in his heart for 3 years. But after Jesus died, he used his wealth to support that early church. With the woman, she was excited. She left everything and went into the city and said, "Come see a man which told me all that ever I did." Right away, she goes and tells people. Remember, Paul says he planted, Apollos watered, God gives the increase. So we have to leave the timing to God. I met a young man who came to one of these dental medical health clinics that we were doing, and I was just there as a dentist. And I thought I could connect with him. I gave him my number. I said, "Hey, I'd like to take you out to eat." And we went out to eat, and I said, "Hey, how would you like to do Bible studies?" So we started doing Bible studies. We did Bible studies off and on for 10 years. 3 years ago, he finally got baptized. That was a long time. I thought, is this guy ever going to get baptized? But let me tell you, there's something good about someone who took 10 years to get baptized, okay? It's better than the guy who gets baptized after a 4-week seminar, and then a year later, he's out of the church. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, leave the timing to God. Because sometimes we're trying to do the work of the Holy Spirit. We want to get them baptized, but you know what? I've just learned, I just leave it to God and let God handle it. So leave the timing to God, and the woman, she became converted right away. We need people just like the woman. You know why? They're excited. They want to tell everybody. I told you about the one person I'm just started doing Bible studies with the other night, two nights ago. Last night, we did our first Bible study. She got introduced by someone else I'm studying the Bible with. The lady is excited. She's telling her friends. You and I, we're all tapped out of people. You know what I mean? We don't have friends and family to invite to church anymore. But when you convert the new person, they got friends and family to invite. That's why we need new people coming into the church. And what you see with the lady is, even with her meager, poor reputation, she had influence. And she was able to bring her city. But you know what? Nicodemus, with his wealth and with his influence, what was he able to do? Impact the world church. You know what I'm saying? And we need both. We need the local, and we need someone who can impact the worldwide. Now, so one of the basic points of the story is that Jesus goes from the upper echelon, someone like Nicodemus who's so well respected and revered by the people, and he goes down to the lowest rung on the social ladder, this outcast of a woman. It says we're told that Jesus and every person that he saw a soul to be what? Saved. Exactly. So that's one lesson. When you walk out the door in the morning, you pray. We talked about that earlier. Pray and ask God for divine appointments. Is you go out there, you look at every single person as a soul to be saved, and you look at people differently. Otherwise, you just get offended like everyone else does, right? Everyone else is getting offended. But when you see a patient, or you see your coworkers, look at them as a soul to be saved. Not as they are, but as they can be. And it'll completely change the way you look at people. Now, you're all familiar with this, and I know this is like ad nauseum for some people, which is Christ's method alone, right? Christ's method alone will bring true success. He mingled with people as one who desired their good. And we're familiar with this whole thing, right? He showed his sympathy, ministered to their needs, and won their confidence. Then he bade them follow me. And what's the most important word in this whole paragraph? Then. It's timing again. See, it's timing. Then. He won their confidence, then he bade them follow me. We haven't even won their confidence, and we're like, you need to follow me in my diet plan, you need to follow me on the day I worship, and you need to follow me on all this stuff. That's what we do. So we were doing our Grand Teton event, and I invited a friend from my rock climbing gym to come with us. And so we're going to leave my house at 4 in the morning. There's 5 of us driving. And where's 5 of us? I'm sorry. There's 5 of us driving, and we're going to drive 14 hours to get to the Grand Tetons. And we leave at 4 in the morning. We're pulling a huge like a big trailer. And it wasn't more than 4 or 5 hours into the drive where between my new friend, who's a rock climber, who's not Seventh-day Adventist, and my good, well-meaning buddy, they got into a banter, joking back and forth about why you should eat meat and why you shouldn't eat meat. And I'm just like, this is not happening to me. There are so many things we can talk about. Do you see what I'm saying? And now it become a joke. Do you see what I'm saying? My friend was being well-meaning. He was trying to share with her about the health message, but it just makes us look more weird than anything else. Does that make sense? That's right. Builds walls. Absolutely. So, I'm going to one gentleman shared, if they had talked God at any point in our convos, short for conversations, I would have been gone. The Spirit dictated when it was the right time. He knew when I would be receptive. Humans have the nasty habit of boogering up things. And sometimes we do. For me, what I've determined is if I had to choose between being too pushy and just walking away, I'd rather walk away than being too pushy. For evangelism, does anyone know what the acronym CPR stands for in evangelism? Cultivating, planting, and reaping. Yeah, if you're a farmer, you understand this concept, right? You can't just plant seeds at any time in the winter, just like wasting your time. You have to wait till the time of the year is just right, and you can't just start plucking fruit off the tree at any time, right? There's a timing for this. Timing's very, very important. So, I was at the airport, I was headed off, traveling somewhere. I never, hardly ever buy magazines, but I was at the little airport store, and I just happened to ask the lady at the counter, I go, do you have any triathlon magazines? And she said no. The lady behind me overheard me, and she comes over to me, and she goes, I heard you asking about triathlons. And she has on a triathlon backpack. And she's excited. She wants to talk about triathlons because we have something in common. And she's just going on and on, super social extrovert. And she goes, do you mind if we sit together on the plane? I was like, great. So she asked, and she goes, they arranged it so we can sit together on the plane. This is too easy. Now, it's like a 4-hour flight. I have her all to myself. Where should I start? Should we start Daniel 7, Daniel 2, Revelation 13? We could cover all 5 S's of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. What are the pillars of the Seventh-day Adventist Church? Sabbath, sanctuary, state of the dead, second coming, spirit of prophecy. Okay? As we started talking, we were talking on and on about triathlons, and I could gather that she was a very secular person, most likely atheist. Her husband's a cardiothoracic surgeon. They just recently moved to Washington. And she talked about how we can train together, bike and run. Because that's what we triathletes like to do. We like to do these things together, And we're just talking and talking. And I determined that she would be a long-term contact, not a short-term contact. That means, am I going to never see her again? If not, I'm going to hand her a glow track or whatever. But I realized I'm going to see her again, and she insisted that I use her heart rate monitor because I was actually headed to a triathlon. I took it. Why did I take her heart rate monitor? Yeah, and it's expensive, so this would keep us connected. Guess how many times I brought up God during our conversation? Not once. Okay? And anyways, it was, I forget how many months or how long after that she came out to our first F5 event. I got to meet her husband. We just got to be friends. It wasn't until 2 years later we brought her to an F5 event, and on the way home, everyone in my car sleeping. She's driving for me. I'm in the front seat, and we had our first spiritual conversation. She grew up Catholic, and after a lot of the things that she'd seen and the abuses, she had no desire for anything spiritual, and she's completely atheist. And anyways, it was 5 years later. We just did our recent F5 event in Sedona, and she came. She's having a good time. She loves it. She's got like, I think, 20 plus Adventist friends now. Okay, she's not baptized. She had a really amazing time. Anyways, at the end of our event, I wanted to give her something because, she's one of my target people. Every major event we've had, I've been able to bring non-Adventist people to our events. And so I go find her that morning, and she could just tell something happened. And she said, there was a voice that was speaking to me, like, give him a try, just give him a try. And she was just visibly, like, shaken. I mean, the best way to describe it is like the Holy Spirit was just speaking to her. You know what I mean? And she goes, I'll do a Bible study. You know what I'm saying? So after that event was over, I made sure I contacted her, and her friend who came with her, who's Baptist, he was excited because he's trying to reach her for the Lord. And I'm excited now to do Bible study with both of them because he goes, I'll join you guys. And he's Baptist. We did one Bible study, okay? And then after the second one, it was hard to get a hold of her, and one time she couldn't get on Wi-Fi, and it's because she's in the middle of opening up a gym right now. Imagine trying to open up a new business. You're really busy. You know what I mean? So we tried another time, and she just let me know she's so super busy right now. I'm not worried. It's all in whose timing is it? It's all in God's time. I'm just amazed at God. This woman that I met in an airport, we just hadn't even had one Bible study so far. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, leave it in God's hands at the right time. You know what I mean? Jesus was a master evangelist. Did he win everyone that he encountered? No. And so, so CPR is, we know what that is. There's also BLS. What is BLS? Basic life support. It's kind of the same thing as CPR, right? And I have my own acronym for basic life support for BLS, for evangelism. It's just what I call basic level of success. Do you know what I consider basic level of success? If they know you're Adventist and they think you're normal, I think that's successful. Now, here's why. Have you ever, when you think, have you ever had someone tell you, oh, so-and-so, they're Mormon? It usually goes like this. Oh, so-and-so is Mormon. They're really nice. They don't usually say that about Baptists. Oh, they're Baptists. They're Presbyterian. Or it's like this. They'll meet you and they're like, oh, you're Adventist? I had friends who were Seventh-day Adventists. They're so nice. I know we're nice. You don't have to tell me we're nice. See, the thing is, there's that regular, your mainstream denominations, right? Like Baptist, Presbyterian, Foursquare, Evangelical, whatever. And then you had that subset of the weirdos, right? Who are they? The Mormons? Jehovah's Witnesses? Yeah, and Adventists. See, you recognize that. You do realize that, right? I mean, as soon as they know you're Adventist, there's already a wall there. You don't have to build that wall any bigger. Do you see what I'm saying? And so with all the stories that I've been telling you, what I see happening routinely with my friends, well-meaning friends, what are they doing all the time? They're just kind of building that wall bigger. One of my friends, one of the times I take Uber a lot to get to the airport and back to my car. I leave my car at my church, which is 4 miles away, and so I love giving them a great controversy. And with this one Uber lady, at the end I gave her a great controversy, and she goes, are you Mormon? You get the point that she's asking, right? Is this literature Mormon literature? I was like, no. And for good measure, I said, I'm not Jehovah's Witness either. To which she smiled, you know what I mean? She waved at me when she was taking off. A lady commented to a friend of mine, oh, you're an Adventist? You seem normal. Ellen White says, be sure to work in a way that will remove prejudice instead of creating it. For some reason, I think a lot of times we're just better at creating prejudice than removing it. So, here's the good and bad news. I did a poll on this Facebook group. Oh, by the way, I have a Facebook group I started with my friends. It's called Evangel Living. It's basically just living an intentional and deliberate life of evangelism. You can share tips on witnessing, share inspirational testimonies, and it's just really encouraging people. You know, and when you see that kind of stuff and you hear other people talking about it, it's contagious, right? And you want to get involved. So I feel like it's one of the top 5 Facebook groups in Facebook that's actually useful in doing something for God's kingdom. You know what I mean? Most of the Facebook groups I'm a part of, off-roading, triathlon, most of it's just, you know, kind of for entertainment purposes, right? And so I want to encourage you guys to join it. Anyone can join it, Evangel Living. There's a couple of key questions on there just to make sure you're Adventist, like what is SOP or what is GC? What is Haystacks? So, you know, you're welcome to join on that. I would encourage you guys to all join this group. Now, I did a poll on there, and so for the most of the people who became Adventists, they never heard of who an Adventist was before they became Adventists. If they had heard of an Adventist, their impression was that they're kind of weird, strange, odd, or unusual. So I was like, this is terrible. They've never even heard of an Adventist. My wife never heard of an Adventist until she met me. But I realized, ooh, maybe that's a good thing now. It's better that they've never heard of us Adventists. You know what I mean? Because automatically, if you think of a Jehovah's Witness or Mormon, you kind of already have your presuppositions, right? So, now in the Bible, we find this term in the Bible, and spirit of prophecy is the word God uses to describe his people, peculiar. Now, peculiar has 2 different definitions. One is, as an adjective, strange, odd, or unusual. The other is particular or special. What do you think God intended to use that word? It's supposed to be particular or special, and I can prove that to you, but I'm not going to for the sake of time. But for more often than not, we seem to come across as strange, odd, and unusual. And that's not how God intended. You know, like for example, the blue zones. It's something I don't think we use enough, but it's something pretty cool, the blue zones. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the blue zones. I mean, the only blue zones that are in North America is Loma Linda, where there's a high concentration of Seventh-day Adventists. What's really cool is, as I was putting together a presentation about the blue zones, you go to Sardinia, Ikaria, Greece, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Okinawa, they live on beautiful beaches, white sand beaches with negatively charged ocean air. If I lived out there, I would live 10 years longer too, wouldn't you? You go to Loma Linda, I went and spent 4 years there. The air is horrible in Loma Linda. There's traffic everywhere. Isn't that amazing? It's an outlier. It's because it's God's special blessing on his people. And we're following his prescription for long life and longevity. You know what I mean? There's some neat things. There's so many neat things we can talk about, and yet it always comes back to some of these odd conversations that I shared earlier.
Keller, are you going to do Q&A at the end?
Oh yeah, I'll be glad to. Okay?
Can you look on this side a bit more?
Sure. Yes, 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 yes. You got it. So, one of my favorite things is, Ellen, I like how Paul says it. He goes, be all things to all people. I use the word, just be relatable. Are people able to relate to you? I'm going to be practical, okay? So in my life, my conservative friends think I'm too liberal. And my liberal friends think I'm too conservative, which is perfectly fine with me, because I want to be right in the middle. If you look on my Facebook wall, I'm very careful about what I post on my Facebook wall. I post stuff that's fun in my day-to-day life without posting every minute of my life. Some people do that. This is what I ate, this is what I did. That's a little bit too much. You're spamming people to death. I post things that will make me relatable with my friends. So what I see is my super conservative friends don't hit like on those things. Like we went mountain climbing or rock climbing or mountain biking or whatever I do. You just go on my Facebook wall. But I'm doing that because I'm building bridges with my friends who are from the rock gym. And then when I share, like, hey, I just baptized somebody, then all my conservative friends will click, like. And my atheist friends, you don't see anything from them. They're just kind of observing. I know they see it all. Do you see what I'm saying? Because I'm just trying to build bridges with everybody. You know what I'm saying? And then you get the Facebook person, and I can say this because I don't know any of you guys. So if someone's guilty of it, I can walk out of here and no arrows on my back. You know that person, like, there's no single picture of them. You don't have no idea what they look like. It's just their name or some odd name. And then on the top is a spirit of prophecy quote. It's a Bible text, and all their posts are just spirit of prophecy and Bible quotes. How relatable is that? You know what I mean? Because the thing is, see, I had a gal in my rock climbing gym. This girl's straight up atheist, tattoos everywhere, piercings everywhere. And during COVID, when she was freaking out, she messaged me. She goes, will you pray for my sister? I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'd taken her rock climbing before. I just want to be relatable, so when that time comes, they're going to reach out to me. You see what I'm saying? And so my thing is are we looking to connect with other people, or are we just trying to, and the thing is, I understand when someone puts just spirit of prophecy quotes and Bible texts, their intentions are good. But to me, I don't think that's very effective in reaching people. So, but the thing is, I also want to mention this. The Bible tells us, let every man be convinced in his own mind. So I'm not going to fault someone else for their method. I'll give you an example. At Halloween, somebody that I know, they posted but a post about how Halloween is satanic and demonic. And I agree with it. I would never put that on my wall, though. Because all my atheist friends would look at it and be like, what is wrong with this guy? You know what I mean? To them, it's as harmless as Easter. Do you see what I'm saying? So my thing is if I put something up, what if my gay coworker saw it? Would it build bridges or burn bridges? That's simple. I like how Ellen White says this. She goes, agree with the people on every point where you can consistently do so. Let them see that you love their souls and want to be in harmony with them as so far as possible. What she's saying is, when you disagree with people, you're not building bridges. And I don't understand these people on Facebook where they see a post that makes them upset and they have to comment and they have to argue. If I see something I don't agree with, I just scroll on by. I don't care. It don't bother me. It's just oil. It's like water off the back. You know what I'm saying? But I see my friends arguing all the time on whatever it is, politics, racism, all the different issues, vaccinations, masking. You know what I mean? I think we have more important things that we have to worry about than arguing with these things, because the thing is, I have to tell you the story. So one of my Bible study contacts that I recently baptized, well, this was in November. Now he's eager to share, and he met this guy at the gym, and he goes, will you talk with him? So I was like, sure. So we just met at my office on Thursday night, and both of them are sitting there. He wants to ask me about what I believe about the Trinity. Because what happened is he has a friend who's Adventist, and she's an anti-Trinitarian. So as soon as I shared with him my beliefs on the Trinity and what the Seventh-day Adventist Church believes, he just like, oh, we're on the same page. And I had to explain to him. I was like, yeah, you get a group of people, you'll have all kinds of different people who believe. You have one family, it doesn't mean they all believe the same thing, right? So he got it. And then he asked me, what shape do you think the world is? And I said round. And he goes, show me with your hands. Right then I knew exactly what he was trying to get at, okay? He's a flat earther. No offense if you're a flat earther. I'm not going to get into that with you, okay? And so at that point, then my friend, my patient who I baptized, and him are going back and forth. And I didn't even let it go for long. I said, hey, look, listen, stop. I was like referee. And they're both older than me. I was like, stop. Hey, you guys, I don't have time for this. We could talk all night. You're not going to convince him. He's not going to convince you. It's like a Democrat convincing a Republican convincing a Democrat. It's not going to go anywhere. There's a phrase that goes, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. I don't understand why people have a hard time understanding that. Ellen White says, deeds, not words. Deeds is going to change people, not words. So I just said, stop, no more. Hey, we can agree to disagree. And I said, hey, let's take a picture together. I took a selfie of us together, shook hands, smiled. But I was like, it was just, you understand the point that I'm trying to make. You know what I mean? You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to convince somebody otherwise. So, listen to this quote very carefully. This one, I want everyone to listen very carefully to this. We do not draw people to Christ by loudly discrediting what they believe, by telling them how wrong they are and how right we are, but by showing them a light that is so lovely that they want with all their hearts to know the source of it. This is not an Ellen White quote. I could probably find the source. It's not Ellen White. But the thing is, so when it comes to giving Bible studies, the first 2 to 3 topics, I don't bring up any topics that will disagree with what they already believe. As soon as you do, you're losing credibility with them. You see what I'm saying? Because you tell somebody something against what they believe, and all of a sudden, what I want to do in the first 2 to 3 Bible studies is win their confidence. Now, what's an example of a topic you can study on your first Bible study that will win their confidence and not burn bridges? Because I told you earlier, I did the study on hell for the first Bible study, and I burned bridges. Do any of you guys know why it's such a big deal for some people? Like, they love the doctrine of hell. Do you know why some people love that doctrine? I mean, to me, isn't it great news that God doesn't torture people forever and ever? I mean, if you and I torture somebody even for a day, we'd be considered a sociopath. And yet they believe that a God of justice, it's his justice system to burn people for eternity. Oh, it's his justice system. He can do whatever he wants. Especially Catholics, especially certain denominations like Baptists, they love their doctrine of hell. The reason why is for some of these people, a lot of people most of us have been hurt in our lives. And for us, that is ultimate retribution. See, I'm going to be in heaven. And that person who hurt me, they're going to be suffering for the rest of their life. They're going to pay for it. That's why this is a doctrine that they love, some people. They hold dear to it. It's horrible, right? And that's why you would think everyone would just give up that doctrine, but no, people like this doctrine. It's a hard one. I have a whole family, I'm doing Bible studies with it. The rest of the family are fine with the truth about hell, but the mother has a hard time, and she has a Catholic upbringing. So she has this picture of a very wrathful, vengeful God, you know? And so it's hard to change someone's presuppositions. Anyways, back to this quote. So what are topics that you can do for your first Bible study that would build bridges instead of burn bridges? Okay, that's a great one. Okay, God loves you. I don't do that Bible study. I don't hardly ever do that Bible study ever, okay? You know why? I try to weave that topic into every single Bible study of God loves you, okay? And then every topic I'm trying to weave in that Satan is the ultimate hijacker, narcissist, counterfeiter, kidnapper, and liar. In every single Bible study, I try to constantly bring that up, okay? Because the thing is, you have to understand, when you start doing Bible studies with someone, they soon discover every single thing they believed was a lie, except the truth about the cross. And you're trying to tell them this, so you have to already start changing their worldview. And there's ways you can go about it. So here's another reason why I don't do what God is love. Okay, God is love. My God is love. What about Vishnu, Buddha, Allah? Are they not good gods? Are they not nice gods? Why is my God a superior God than those gods? Do you see what I'm saying? So I don't do that. So the one that I do 98% of the time, my first Bible study will always be Daniel 2. Okay, will be Daniel 2. Okay, so remember I mentioned earlier in the sermon about how Isaiah, God makes a statement. I am God. There's none else. There's none like me. I can tell you the end from the beginning. I can tell you from ancient times things that are not yet done. And then I go straight into Daniel 2 to prove God's claim. Okay? Now let me tell you why I like Daniel 2 so much. Why did God give this dream to King Nebuchadnezzar? Okay? Yeah. God gave this dream to Nebuchadnezzar to reveal himself personally to the king. That's what God did. But not just to himself, also to the wise men of Babylon. Because their necks were on the line. It mattered to them. But not just them, to all the people in the kingdom of Babylon. In fact, God was trying to reveal himself to everyone in the world at that time. Who better to start with than the most powerful man on the world? Okay? Who only could reveal the dream? Oh, why did God hide the dream from the wise men? Why did God not reveal it? Because there's another story of Pharaoh. Pharaoh knew what he dreamed. He remembered. Why did God seal the dream so the king couldn't remember the dream? What's that? That's right. That's right. Okay? It's twofold. One is the wise men said, you tell us, we'll tell you what it means. They would have given a false prophecy. God was trying to protect his prophecy from false prophets. And then number two, the only one who could reveal it, they said only the gods could reveal this. That's what wise men said. Only a God could do it. Only the gods could do this. Only God's children could reveal and interpret the dream. That's why God did it that way. Who was glorified? God's children. 2,500 years later, who's the only one who can accurately interpret this dream? It's you and me. Have you met a Presbyterian who can accurately interpret this dream? I've met only one person in all my life who actually was semi-familiar with Daniel 2, but as soon as I asked him about Daniel 7, no idea. You see what I'm saying? So if this dream was good enough for God to use to reveal himself to the king and to the world, it's good enough for me. You see what I'm saying? So I just think it makes sense. So now, if you go to a prophecy seminar, the evangelists will always start off with either Daniel 2, or they're going to start with, what's the other topic they start with? They start with, can the Bible be trusted? Which I think is a good topic. But for me personally, in this YouTube, TikTok world where everyone's attention span is super short, I don't think that first topic is compelling and interesting enough, in my opinion. Yeah, history supports it, all the different things, archaeology, science, all that stuff. But, people's attention span is so short. You know what my goal is? At the first Bible study, you should have one goal. What's your goal? They'll come back for another one. Do you see what I'm saying? So you know what happens when I do a Daniel 2 at the end? What did you think? That was amazing. That's what I want to hear. Do you see what I'm saying? Because I want to get them to come to a second Bible study. So that's why it's my go-to now. If they're dealing with certain other issues, I might talk about other things at the first Bible study. But Daniel 2 is so easy. A 10-year-old kid can understand it, and you can do it straight out of the Bible. So my favorite way of doing a Bible study, it's the only way, I believe, there's never been a better time to give a Bible study is you do it right in front of the computer with whoever you're giving the Bible study to. I do it right in front of the computer. Forget having to flip through pages. You pull up Daniel 2 right there. You can use your mouse and highlight it. You can pull up Daniel 2, the dream. You can pull up the image. Any Bible verse you need, Google just a few keywords, and it pops up. And they think you're a Bible scholar because you're just pulling up Bible verses. Imagine if you had to do that with the Bible. You're like, I know it was in 2 Kings 8, third thing. You're trying to look. But with Google at your fingertips and then with Zoom, with the share screen, you can do the same thing. It's so easy to give a Bible study using Zoom. So while most people hate Zoom, I love Zoom. I do Bible studies with a guy in Netherlands. All we have to do is match up our time zones. You know what I mean? And so a couple things. So Daniel 2 is my go-to. What's another topic that would not go against or disagree with whatever they believe? It's the origin of sin, the origin of Satan, and the origin of pain. See, the number one question people want to ask God when they get to heaven is, why did you allow all this pain? See, so I want to address a question that they're already interested in. You see what I'm saying? And you'd be surprised, most people have no idea about Ezekiel 28, where Satan came from. Isaiah 14, war in heaven, Revelation 12. So these are these are topics that you can build bridges with. Now, this part, I'm going to just share it with you guys. What I do now is, as long as they're not Catholic, on the second Bible study, I will go straight to Daniel 7, and then do the first part of Revelation 13, and I will reveal who the Antichrist is on the second Bible study. Okay? The key word is as long as they're not Catholic. And when I'm done, usually they're going to be saying something like this: how come everyone doesn't know this? How come all the churches aren't teaching this? Do you think is that a positive statement or a negative statement? It's a positive statement for me. They feel like they're in the know. Like they're in that small minority of people who know Bible truth. And they will keep coming back. You know why? What do they want to know now? They want to know what the mark of the beast is. Because I tell them, you can't know what the mark of the beast is unless you know who the beast is. Now, do you think I'm going to reveal who the mark of the beast is at the next study? No. They're not going to find out for 2-3 months. One of my guys I baptized, before he got baptized, before we did the mark of the beast study, he figured it out. Most people should be able to figure it out. If you understand about the law, and you understand about the Sabbath, and you go through Daniel 3, King's Nebuchadnezzar, and you go about Daniel in the lion's den, it all starts to fit together, and they can sometimes figure it out. But anyways, I will do that if they're not, and once they know who the beast is, it really builds your credibility with them. They feel like you really know the Bible, and then after that, I will do the origin of sin and Satan, and then you can cover all the topics. Now, there's certain topics that need to go before others. Some don't matter. Like, for example, you should do State of the Dead before you do hell. You should do the law before you do the Sabbath. But there's certain times, depending on the situation, I'm always praying for all my studies. God will guide me and direct me. And sometimes I will do other topics in between them. If they're dealing with a personal issue, then I will deal with that too. Okay? Coming back to this. So, I want to be as relatable as possible. Going back to the whole fire hosing, there's a little quote like this that I like. I can't find where the quote is from, but I thought it was from the Bible. It's not from the Bible. A little bit of honey is good. Too much will make one vomit. Okay? There's some people. Is it? Okay. Awesome. And you can apply this to anything, right? You can apply it to a sermon, right? A 45-minute sermon is good. 2 hours, a little bit too much. You know what I mean? 25:16. And so just be aware of this. So I make all my first 3 Bible studies, they must end in less than an hour. Ideally 45, 50 minutes, but you must end it in an hour. Let me tell you what happened after your first Bible study. They're like, this is amazing. They want to just sit with you and talk. And you can talk for 2 to 3 hours. When it's time for the second Bible study, they forgot that you're the one who wanted to sit and talk with them. You know what they remember? Man, Calvin, he held me hostage for 3 hours. If I go back there again, I'm going to be sitting there for 3 hours. I don't have time for this. That's what they remember. I'm exaggerating, but you get the point that I'm making. So after an hour, I scoot him out of my office. I kick him out. It's kind of like when you go to a buffet. After you go eat at a buffet, do you want to come right back to a buffet? But if you go to a fine dining restaurant, they control the portions because they want you to come back. And you want to come back to that restaurant. And it's the same thing. So control the portions. Now, after you've had a relationship with them, after 2 months, if they want to sit for 2 hours, go for it. It don't matter. But not on the first 2 or 3 Bible studies. That's definitely a rule that I keep. and I would encourage you to do that. And that's where a lot of people, when you're a beginner, you don't know. You just gave a Bible study. You're excited. They're excited, and they just want to sit and chat. And you just sit and chat and chat and chat. And then you wonder why they don't come back. Okay? Now, I'm married to, my wife is an introvert. My 2 daughters are probably introverts. My brother's an introvert. Half this room or more are introverted people. So I understand, because when you talk about evangelism for introverted people, it can just strike sheer terror into their hearts and their minds. I have a friend, she's so on fire for the Lord, I couldn't believe it. She was telling me she's on the airplane, she had an opportunity to witness to somebody, and she was freaking out. Her knees were shaking, you know? And I was like, wow, I can't believe that. To me, I'm like, she was the definition of courage, you know? So I totally get that. So, you know, when I get on an airplane, my wife makes sure I sit next to the stranger. And then me and the stranger, we can talk the whole flight. And then she quietly does what I call introverting. That's what introverts do. They get re-energized and refreshed by being alone, being left alone, you know what I mean? So the thing is, I'm going to share some things that might be helpful for those who are introverted in here. Who's introverted here? Who's real introvert? Awesome. So I sometimes I want the extroverts to understand what the introverts are like. Where do I start? I mean, you guys all know the basic stuff. You know, I mean, the extrovert gets energized by being with people. The introverts, they get drained by being with people. They kind of need their own time to recharge. Now, one person shared on Reddit that they went on a 3-week backpacking trip in order to avoid 2 family reunions. All the introverts are like, yep, I get it. You know, when we hear things like everything is canceled because of the coronavirus, we're just like, no. And all the introverts are like silently saying, yes. Some introverts, you know what? They'll see the phone ring and they'll just watch it ring all the way until it goes to voice message. They do. They will step outside, they'll see someone they don't want to talk to, and they'll just kind of duck around and wait until they disappear. They do. This is what introverts, you know, you talk to introverts, they'll admit to this, okay? So, I shared this because when we're doing evangelism, we're dealing with the minds of people, so you want to be sensitive to this. Usually I'm trying to find out quickly, are they an introvert or an extrovert? You know what I mean? Because what I don't want to do is, if they're an introvert, the last thing I want to do is fire hose them and give them too much, you know, and wear them out. And, you know, Andrew and Peter, 2 brothers, which one was the extrovert? Peter, Andrew. Introvert. All you see him, what do you see him in the Bible? In John, he's mentioned 3 times. Each time you see him, all he's doing is quietly bringing someone to Jesus. He first findeth his own brother Simon and saying, we have found the Messiah. He just brings his brother to Jesus. John chapter 6, the little boy, the little lad, 5 loaves, 2 fishes. He just brings a little boy to Jesus. Later on, I think it's in John 18 or 21, you know, they're just bringing some Greeks to Jesus. That's all he does. And so, a simple thing that, this is for the introverts, okay? Let me see. Okay. This is so simple to do, okay? I love glow tracks. I fly a lot. When I go by a public restroom, I can just hit the stalls and just leave one right there in the stalls. Do you think this works? At the Glow office, they got a message. Hey, I just found a glow track in the bathroom. They want Bible studies. They get messages, they find them on the ground. You might think, oh, if I leave it on the car, what if it falls off? People found glow tracks on the ground, and they become converted. I'll share just a couple of little, a young man found a discarded glow track on the ground and picked it up. The glow track title was, Why Go to Church on Saturday? He then went home to ask his mom, why do we go to church on Sunday instead of Sabbath? His mom froze. Can you guess why? She used to be an ex-Adventist, but had departed from the faith, and now she was taking the kids to a Sunday church. The young man's interest continued to grow. He began attending the Adventist Academy and has become a baptized member of our church. We are told we should treat as a sacred treasure every line of printed matter that comes from our publishing houses. Even the fragments of a pamphlet or a periodical should be regarded as of value. You'd be amazed. So I have these in my clothes, my jacket, in my car, in my office. It's just so easy. So the thing is, Ellen White says not all are called to preach, but everyone is called to share. So if you feel uncomfortable knocking on doors or trying to ask people for Bible studies, you have no excuse for doing this. You just leave it on a cart, in your shopping grocery cart. You could get out of the car and just leave one on the car next to you. Bathroom stalls are the best. No one even sees you, right? Someone I know shared how, when you get those prepaid envelopes that come with your bills, just throw one in there and mail it back off. That's free evangelism money. I mean, it's limitless what you can do, right? And so, easy to do. It's just a sermon in your pocket. All right. Now, we've all heard evangelists tell these stories where they're on an airplane and they meet somebody and they have these divine appointments all the time. And then you look at your own life and go, how come I'm not having these experiences? Can anyone relate? Right? They're always having these soul-winning divine appointments. Well, I would hear these stories and I wanted those stories too. I wanted those experiences in my life. And then I started thinking, what's wrong with me? Do I not have the Holy Spirit in my life? What's so special about those guys? So this is what I did. I wanted those experiences. So all I did was I applied a biblical principle to my life. There's a biblical principle. It says, be faithful in the little things, and God will make you ruler over much. Ellen White has a quote that goes like, the success in this life and success in gaining the future life depends upon a faithful, conscientious attention to the little things. Is it the big things of life? It's a little, because life is a sum of little things, right? So I said, well, I'll just be faithful in the little things. I've got my family to give Bible studies to, so we do worship. So I started, when my kids were a certain age, junior high, we started going through the Amazing Facts Bible study guides for each night for worship. So now I could say I'm giving somebody Bible studies. And then when they needed someone to teach Sabbath school for the high school kids, I said, I'll teach high school Sabbath school. So now at least I'm teaching somebody Bible, right? They may already come to church. I heard about having a prayer box in your office. And so I was like, that's a great idea. So I just put a prayer box in my office. It just says, we know that this is a place of business, but Dr. Kim believes in prayer. If you would like prayer, just put in a thing for prayer. And Dr. Kim likes to give Bible studies. Having had that for probably 10 years, I've only gotten maybe 1 or 2 Bible studies because of it, but it's still 1 or 2 Bible studies. And lots of I get prayer requests in there. I had a patient who walked in. He told me that when he saw that box, he knew that this was where God had led him to. So is it big things or little things? It's just the little things. Just be faithful in the little things. You know what I mean? When the church, the church operates on the Pareto principle. It's 20% doing all the work, 80% just come and go. Well, when the church needs somebody, they need a greeter. They need this. Volunteer. Because see, when you're faithful in the little things, do you think God's going to make you ruler over much? My assistant told me, we need a new assistant. She told me there's a girl that works at the daycare center. Her name's Caitlin. And whenever she goes to pick up her grandson at the daycare, whenever Caitlin's there, his face is always clean. Like, little boys, 2-year-olds, they got snot running down their nose, food everywhere. But whenever she's there, it's always clean. And she was just like this 18-year-old girl. Just a little thing. And she goes, can we hire her? And I'm like, oh, hiring a girl who knows nothing about dentistry. We got to train her and hire her. But just off a recommendation, I said, let's bring her in for an interview. And I said, okay, we'll hire her. So now she didn't have to go through a whole year of school, 10 months. She didn't have to pay $10,000 to get trained. We trained her. And then she did such a great job, she moved up, and now she's working front desk at the office that used to be mine. I sold it. And now she has a career. So she went from minimum wage to having a full career. Why? All she did is because she would wipe up the little kid's face. Right? I mean, if you're an employer, who are you going to give more responsibilities to? The one who's faithful in the little things? Or the one who doesn't want anything except for the important jobs? You see what I'm saying? So I really think that's the key to getting divine appointments. Just be faithful in the little things. Be willing to serve. Lord, I'm going to be willing to do whatever. I'll be a janitor. I'll clean the toilets, whatever you want me to do. And then see if God doesn't bless you with divine appointment after divine appointments. Divine appointments are addicting. There's nothing like a divine appointment to feel God's love. If you're feeling spiritually sunk, I used to be a part of the Ministry Army Bible Camp, and the thing is, all of us that would go, we'd have a spiritual high when that camp ended. And then we knew what was coming. You get a spiritual high, goes into that spiritual valley. It just happened after every camp. And I realized why. At the camp, we really emphasized a lot on how to study your Bible and how to pray. There was very little on how to share your love with Jesus with others. And I realized that's the missing link. When you're training for a marathon, there's 3 things that are critical. Training, nutrition and water, and sleep, rest. You can train all you want, eat all you want. You don't get the rest and recovery that your body needs. You're running every day. You will not become successful at running. You can sleep all you want, train all you want. You don't give yourself nutrition. Same thing with the spiritual life, I've discovered. You can pray all you want and read all you want, but if you're not also sharing, you see what I'm saying? See, what's so cool is when you're sharing, you become a channel for God's love to flow through you. I can't tell you how many times I'll be sharing something, and it's just the words that I needed to hear to be inspired and encouraged. And I walk away and go, wow, God, that was amazing. You know, we're told these things like, how are we, at the end of time, God will give us the words to speak when we're facing, some magistrate, or you're going to be in court. And you're like, how am I going to ever be able to do that? I've learned it's through giving Bible studies. Because you get used to God giving you things to say. Like when I had that person that was the flat earth guy, as we were talking, it was just amazing how it was just flowing. All I could say was, God, thank you. You're just giving me the words to say. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that's the best way is for us to practice being a channel for God's love to flow through. And, there's nothing like after a Bible study, you're just on a spiritual high all the time because you're constantly being his arms, his hands, and his feet to share his love with other people. I'm going to skip through some of this stuff. So, what are just some of the little things that we can do? What are the little things that you can be faithful in? Start your morning off with asking God for a divine appointment. Everyone you see them as a soul to be saved. Glow tracks is such a little thing. I mean, I can't wait to get to heaven and just find out all the amazing stories of that glow track you just left in that toilet. The one I like to leave in the handicap one if I can is always, where's God when I'm hurting? Someone's handicapped. They might be struggling. They might be discouraged. And to just find that there. This is what Spirit of Prophecy tells us. In times past, some in the sanitarium, or I'm going to say hospital or dental clinic, okay, I'm going to substitute that, have felt it their duty to introduce the Sabbath question in all places. They have urged it upon the patients with earnestness and persistency. To such the angels of God would say, not words, but deeds. The daily life tells much more than any number of words. A uniform cheerfulness, tender kindness, Christian benevolence, patience, and love will melt away prejudice and open the heart to the reception of the truth. Few understand the power of these precious influences. And we're told personal influence is a power. Now here's one. I just shared this. So remember I said, let every man be convinced in his own mind? So something that I don't do regularly is I don't pray with all my patients. I pray with them if they ask me to, or if I see them visibly afraid and I'm about to do a wisdom tooth extraction and they're nervous, I'll say, would you like me to pray for you? But I don't pray with every patient. And some dentists do, because I've heard of it. Now, if I was a physician, I'd be more inclined to pray with my patients. But I'll tell you why I don't. Because I've had situations where I'm about to do a filling and I go, can I pray with you? And they look at me like, do you know what you're doing? Like, does this really need prayer? Do you see what I'm saying? And what if you're anti-God? Does that build bridges when they're like, What if you go and someone's like Hindu and they want to do some kind of little ceremony with you and you just be like, please don't. You see what I'm saying? So for me personally, if it's not going to build bridges, I don't want to do it. They already know. I already have a prayer box that say, hey, if you want prayer, ask me. You see what I'm saying? So that's just me personally. But if they're scared and I ask them, usually I'm like, yes, please pray for me. Like right before an implant or some surgery. But just for a routine filling, I've had more awkward incidences. Especially if they go, no, thank you. Now, during the whole procedure, it's a little awkward for both of us. Building bridges or building walls? You get the point what I'm saying? And so it sounds like, well, why wouldn't you ask everyone to pray with them? Because I want to win their confidence first. Okay? And so what I do is, with my patients, I check the schedule to make sure they're not a new patient. I haven't just seen them for the first time. But if I've seen them for a number of times, or especially after a visit, and they're just like, Dr. Kim, thank you so much. We're so thankful. We tell all our friends and family about you. I go, hold on one second, I got something for you. And I go to my office, and I get the Great Controversy. I use the abridged version because the regular version is a little bit thick and intimidating to hand out to somebody. Do you like it when someone slams a big old book in your hands and go, read this? No. It's like, so the abridged version is a lot thinner, and it skips the Reformation. And it kind of jumps into more the present truth. And so when I'm coming back out, I write my cell phone number in it. Now, if I had time, I'd write them a lovely letter. I just don't have that kind of time. So I write my cell phone number, and I go, I go, this is my cell phone number. As I hand them the book, I go, this is my cell phone number. If you have an emergency, you can call me directly to my cell. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to connect with them and make them go, oh, wow, he just gave me his cell phone number. Of course, they don't all know that it's on my website, it's on my answering machine. Everyone has access to my cell phone number, okay? And that's a whole nother topic too. But anyways, so I hand it to them. I go, this is one of my favorite books. And I say, the only reason why I believe what I believe in the Bible is because it foretells the future. And I go, it's kind of crazy right now, right? And they always go, yep. That's all I do. And just hand them the book. And then on my computer screen, there's a little notation. I put down GC. And a lot of times I'll offer a Bible study. And I go, one of my favorite things to do is do Bible studies with my patients. If you're ever interested, let me know. I'd love to show you Bible prophecy. And then I put OBS, offered Bible study, so I know. And the reason why is I had too many patients being like, oh, you already gave me a book. You already gave me a book. So I'm like, let's keep track of this so I'm not kind of doing it over and over. And the thing is, like that lady I shared with you earlier. All I did was give her a book and a number, and she called me and asked me for Bible studies. Now her family of 5 are studying with, not all her children, but 3 of her kids are studying. So that's a blessing. And a couple of them are like really just, I'm confident. I feel very good that they're going to be joining our church. Hopefully, that's the goal, of course. So, anyways. Now, a lot of people, I touched upon this earlier, about being afraid of giving Bible studies, and I said something. I said, all you have to do is what? Be able to do what to give a Bible study? Read. And that's partially not true. Because I have a friend, all he does is he drops off Bible study guides every week, drops off another one. So you don't even have to be able to read. So if you don't know how to read, you can still give a Bible study, okay? So that's the good news. All I am is I'm just one big beggar showing other beggars where to find food. Okay? You know what's the difference between a beginner snowboarder and a snowboard instructor? Steve, do you know what's the difference? That's it. They say just 4 days. But that's not true. For some, it can be just 1 day. I picked it up on my first day. Yeah, it's just 1 day. As long as you know how to snowboard, you can teach someone else to snowboard. That's all you're doing. You just have to know just a little bit more. And let me tell you, you will never learn as much about the Bible as when you start giving Bible studies. You will start learning so much about the Bible, things you've never even seen in there. All the time. I was just doing Daniel 8 study with somebody. I'm like, wow, God, how come I hadn't seen that before? You know what I'm saying? And so you want to learn how to study the Bible, start giving Bible studies. And you'll start learning and remembering things. Now, I want to read this. I don't like reading long quotes, but this one's so good. Our ministers need more of the wisdom that Paul had. Now, Paul was a master evangelist. When he went to labor for the Jews, he did not first make prominent the birth, betrayal, crucifixion, and resurrection of Christ. Even though that was a special truth for that time, he did not bring that up. What would happen if he brought that up with the Jews? They don't want to listen to him. So what does he do? He first brought them down step by step over the promises that had been made of a Savior. And over the prophecies. He's talking about Bible prophecy that pointed him out. See, he's winning their confidence first. Topics that they can agree upon. After dwelling on these until the specifications were distinct in the minds of all, and they knew that they were to have a Savior, he then, again, what is then referred to? Timing. He then presented the fact that the Savior had already come. Christ Jesus fulfilled every specification. This was the guile with which Paul caught souls. He presented the truth in such a manner that their former prejudice did not arise to blind their eyes and pervert their judgment. I love that. When you think of guile is like deception, right? And we're told that Paul used guile. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. I have a buddy. This is like my new buddy now. And we do ministry together. He goes around and he asks people, hey, do you want to be my commercial? And you know, with this younger generation, what do they say? Yeah, here. I want you to convince people why they should read this book. It's a great controversy. What's it about? Oh, it's about history. It gives answers to life's problems. Why is there sin and pain in this world? Good God, why pain? And they'll start doing that, and at the end, he gives them the book. Okay? So what is he doing? Well, you know what happens on the street if you're just trying to hand out great controversies? No thanks, no thanks. But with this method, all of a sudden, like, thank you, I want to read this. Thanks so much. He's disarming them. And he has all these amazing methods. It's like a spiritual Trojan horse. Hey, amazing. And so that's what we got to do, you know what I mean? We got to figure out other methods to get this into their hands. And with me, with my patients, I've been at the airport trying to hand out great controversies, and you're kind of like, they don't want it. But you know, in my office, they'll take it because I'm giving it to them. I've got my phone number written in it. And all I want to do is get that book into their home. They may not read it now, but you never know when a time comes when they'll be compelled to read it. Here's another quote from Ellen White that I think is very important. Tactful methods, not deception. You need not feel that the truth is to be spoken to unbelievers on any and every occasion. You should plan carefully what to say and what to leave unsaid. This is not practicing deception. It is to work as Paul worked. He says, being crafty, I caught you with guile. You must vary your labor and not have one way in which you think must be followed at all times and in all places. Your ways may seem to you a success, but if you used more tact, more of the wisdom of the serpent, you would have seen much more real results of your work. So, there is a parable that Jesus gives. Actually, it's a miracle, and it's shared in all four of the Gospels. It's the only miracle that's shared in all four of the Gospels. Does anyone know which miracle this is? It's the miracle, what's that? Feeding the 5,000. And then the feeding of the 4,000 is shared in 2 of the Gospel books. So technically, this story is shared 6 times. It's shared over and over. The fact that it's repeated so many times, we should give some attention to this. So I'm not going to go over the story because you and I already know the story. I'm going to only highlight a couple parts. Is Jesus said, give them something to eat. And what the disciple says, we have but 5 loaves and 2 fish. What were they saying? What was their point? We don't have enough. We ain't got nothing to share. We don't have resources. We don't have the time. We don't have enough. When he says give them something to eat food. What does food represent spiritually? The Word of God. Share the Word of God. We don't have anything to share. And Jesus says, just give me what you got. Just give me what you have. He takes it, he prays, he blesses it. And then what does Jesus do? Multiplies it. There's a quote that goes, I'm going to paraphrase the quote. If we add, God will multiply. See, all we got to do is just add and God will multiply. And you and I in this story, who are we? Are we Jesus? Are we the disciples? Or are we the multitude? Who are we? We're the disciples. Who was having the most fun that day, you think? Who do you think was having the most fun? It was the disciples. What's that? Yeah. Well, think about this. The disciples, the multitudes are just getting food. But the disciples know what's going on. They're on the inside. For Jesus, this wasn't exciting for him. It was just another day of him doing work. But imagine for the disciples, they know exactly what's going on. They only had 5 loaves and 2 fish, and Jesus is multiplying. So this story underscores an important spiritual lesson. You and I are to come to Jesus every day for a handout. He gives you what you need. And you are to share this with the multitude. And you keep coming back, and there's more. It never runs out. Ellen White says you must receive to impart. You've got to impart to receive. It's only as you impart you continue to receive. You got to keep doing that. You know what? Most of us, what I've done most of my life, we're just sitting there. We're just getting full. We just keep taking sermon after sermon every week, audio verse all the time. You know what I mean? And so that's what we got to do. And that's why the story is highlighted technically 6 times in the Gospels. And so that's what you and I want to be doing. What time is it right now? I want to... it's gone on. Okay, I'm going to end this soon. I'm going to land the plane, okay? Let me see. I'm going to just skip through here. Okay, I'm going to end with 2 things. I'm going to end. I love this quote. One of the things that we are to be is we're supposed to be overcomers, right? Revelation 3:21. To him who overcomes, will he grant to sit with me on my throne as I have also overcome and sat down with my Father. We're to be overcomers, and it's hard, isn't it, trying to overcome sin? Ellen White says we become overcomers by helping others to overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And I found this to be so true. when you're focused on helping others. Now, this is where I keep all my firepower. This is my favorite part of my office, right behind my desk. It's where I keep all my literature, right in here. See, other people have alarms in their office, they have safes, they have all that stuff. I'm probably the only dentist that I know of who doesn't have an alarm in my office. But that's because people don't know I got two like angels like standing right in the front of my doors. You know what I mean? So this is the bridge version of The Great Controversy that I personally prefer. This is my favorite. Now, if you guys want this book, my friend Roy Dennis has a Great Controversy ministry. You email him, he'll send you 100 to 1,000 of these books. And then all you have to do is make a donation to his church. And so now you get a tax deduction, and you can make any donation, or you don't even have to make a donation. They'll still give it to you because they just want these books handed out. The thing is, if you want this book, you need to specify that you want the abridged version, so he doesn't send you the regular version. But personally, I find this one to be the much more, just way more palatable for handing out to people.
So this one only has like half, like in the full book, so it starts at the middle of the
Sort of like the middle, without all the history, the Protestant Reformation. Because I've had patients just kind of tell me they get bogged down. So I'm going to end with this story. At GYC a couple years ago, my friend Tara spoke, and then afterwards her family went up and sang. And it was just the most beautiful story because they were refugees from Hmong, from Laos. And you see the guy in the middle, he's in a wheelchair. And so I said to her, "Who's the guy in the wheelchair?" She goes, "It's my brother." I said, "Why is he in a wheelchair?" And she said, "Because he has muscular dystrophy." So I was like, oh, wow. And when you see him, if you listen to his testimony, it'll make you cry. I mean, everyone was crying there at GYC, and I only watched it online. Anyways, I said, hey, invite him to our next F5 event. I'll cover for him to come. And so she goes, okay. And then she emailed me, and she said, is there any hikes that we could take my brother on? Well, at Zion National Park, there's like some paved trails, but not any real hikes. And so I said to our team, I said, you know what? Let's take him on a real hike. So some of you may be familiar with Angel's Landing. So to me, for rock climbers, Angel's Landing is not a big deal. But for a lot of people, it's like supposed to be one of the scariest hikes in the world because it's like cliffs on both sides. And so I said, let's take him to the top of Angel's Landing. And so what we did is we took him on the wheelchair as far as we could because most of the way it's paved going up there. So we got the wheelchair, we got ropes in front, ropes behind. Most of us are rock climbers wearing harnesses, and we did everything safe. So what we did is once we got to where we could no longer take the wheelchair, I bought a special backpack carrier for carrying young adults or disabled people, and we put them on our back, and we started taking turns. And so we go whatever until someone was tired, and we put them on someone else's back, and we got ropes and harnesses, and here, we took them up there. And I've been on a lot of adventures, and this is one of the top 3 adventures I've ever been on in my life. And this was at the top there, you see Shu in the middle, and we were celebrating, and we just had an amazing time. Now, the reason I'm sharing this story is that a lot of people in our group, we had you can see we had 32 people or so helping with this adventure. And there's a lot of people in our group that have a fear of heights. But you know what's interesting is that through this whole thing, not one single person, I didn't hear one person complain about the fear of heights. Why do you think they were complaining about the fear of heights? Yeah, they totally forgot about their problems because we were all focused on getting Shu to the top. Typically, the one thing that stresses me out more than anything would be anytime I have problems with a patient. Let's just say a patient's upset about something or they're complaining. But you know what? Ever since I've gotten active giving Bible studies, hardly anything seems to stress me out anymore because it's just not that important anymore. We're dealing with the souls of people, right? Getting them to heaven. All the other stuff is just so nitty-gritty. It's just not important. So you know what? Are you dealing with anxiety and stress and you fret a lot? Get involved in soul winning. And see if your problems don't just float away. I'll share one funny story with this as we end. Is one of my directors was getting married the week after, so I said, you guys should bring your tuxedo and wedding gown to the top and get your wedding pictures taken at the top. And he was like, cool. So they brought it, and up at the top, they're taking pictures with their wedding regalia and all that stuff. And anyways. Everyone at Zion heard about this. Hikers are seeing it everywhere. They're all heard about this. And I heard later that the rumor is that there was a wedding at the top of Angel's Landing. And so they were getting their disabled friend to the top for the wedding. So it's just kind of funny how rumors always get kind of twisted, right? But anyways, all right. On that note, do you guys have any questions? And keep in mind, I just highlighted a little bit about literature evangelism, a little bit about friendship evangelism, a little bit about giving Bible studies, because each of these topics are too exhaustive in themselves. Yes?
Do you have
No, great question. Daniel 2, I do it straight out of the Bible because Amazing Facts Study Guides does not have Daniel 2 in it. I always wanted to ask him, like, yeah, it is written. A lot of the other ones do, but Amazing Facts doesn't. I don't know why. They have it in the Historicals of Prophecy. Their first one is Daniel 2. So I just do it straight out of the Bible because it's just so easy. And then I'll do Daniel 7, Revelation 13 straight out of the Bible, but other ones, I will do a lot of them straight out of, on the computer, Amazing Facts Study Guides. And then when I'm done, you can just copy the link and send it to them so they can also review it on their own. Another thing that I like to do after a few Bible studies is I like to send them a powerful testimony from Audioverse to listen to. Like, for example, if they're struggling with the Sabbath, Steve Casper Bauer's testimony of how once he started keeping the Sabbath and closed down his recreational rental business that rents out kayaks and stuff on the Sabbath, for the next 6 months, it rained every Sabbath. And his business bloomed on Sunday. So like I will share those testimonies and get them hooked on Audioverse so they can start listening to Audioverse because I can only meet with them 1 hour a week. But I want them to get fed. So that's a good resource. Great question. But you can use any of the Bible studies. I just like Amazing Facts because it's easy and they've got pictures and stuff.
I have a couple. One is, what's like your typical schedule then as a dentist? And with that, how often you're seeing your patients to do this, you know? And then I have two more after that. But with this dental schedule and the way how often you see these patients, then talk about briefly the limitations of licensing. And, you know,
Well, let's start with just the one question because I'm going to forget the other question. So as it evolved, I was like, Lord, there's only so many Bible studies I can do a week. And then God blessed me, okay? So my staff, that's 6 in 1 hour together. My staff, I do all of them together at Tuesdays at lunch, 1 to 2. So I wolf down my lunch beforehand, like at 12. So I just eat my lunch real quick. And the thing is, Tuesdays is my day of fasting usually. It's the day I just fast. There's power in fasting. And when I first started this, especially because on Tuesdays was the guy who was in the wheelchair, he's an atheist. I need Holy Spirit power. This has gotten to be a habit. So I've just been doing this for probably almost 11 months now. Tuesdays, it's not hard. If you just do I fast kind of like, after dinner the night before, and then I'll have dinner later that night. So I try to go shoot for 24 hours. Once you get used to it, it's not very difficult, and it's great for the waistline. So it's a win-win. So the thing is, I don't eat lunch anyway, so I just have Bible studies between 1 and 2. But I want to encourage you guys. You want power in your life? Just fast 1 day a week. You know what I mean? The rest of the week we eat. I love to eat just as much as everyone else. I love to eat. And typically I only eat 2 meals a day anyways, because I found 2 meals is just perfect for me. But anyways,
So for a dentist, you're seeing a patient once every 6 months maybe.
yeah.
Okay. At other clinics, if it's, chronic, then they come once a month. But then other places, it's like once a year, if that. So how often are you having these contacts with these people that you can actually do this kind of Bible study?
Oh, the ones I'm doing Bible studies, these are ones that I'm literally meeting with weekly. But right now, I only have about 27 that I'm doing Bible studies with.
So you're saying after they've shown an interest as a patient,
This is only the people that go, I want a Bible study.
and they come back anyway.
Oh, no, I'm scheduling them for a Bible study.
Not like it's just.
No, it's totally separate from the dental work. This is when I ask them if they want a Bible study. So for example, and then on Tuesdays, I have Bible studies at 5 o'clock. But the thing is, let me just give you an example. Initially, I would do one-on-one only, but I was like, Lord, you need to multiply my time. And I had one guy start a week later after another guy. The Mennonite guy started after the other guy. So I told the Mennonite guy, I said, can we do 2 this week? If we do 2, I can merge the 2 of you guys together. And then I added my other guy that I baptized. I have him coming so that he's relearning it. But I told him, look, you're going to help me give Bible studies. So I look at it as discipling him. Because otherwise because I got to take care of the ones who just got baptized. I don't want to just discard them. So there's 3 of us studying, but he thinks he's teaching, which he is. I encourage him, you share, and he does. He'll share. But then a lot of times he's like, oh, I didn't know that. Because he's only been through all the studies one time. So he's learning and relearning it again.
These are patients of yours then? So the ones that you take them out, ethically, if they're still your patient, how do you cross that bridge? We'll go out to eat and talk
That's a good question. I don't even think about it. I'll tell you what I do, okay? I'm going to be honest with you, okay? I'm going to be very, very honest with you, okay? Okay, so, when you're about to buy a house, you have 70 pieces of documents you have to sign. There are two types of people. They want to read everything. That's not me. Just give it to me. I'll just sign it. Sign. That's just me. So I don't even think about it. Now, the only time I do is when I post a picture, I ask permission. I'm going to post it online, or I usually cross out their eyes. Or if I share it, I'm going to share it publicly, but I just don't even worry about it. I just don't even worry about it. Now, the thing is, I just know because it's my private dental office, I can do whatever I want. I can do Bible studies, and I can do all that. So the thing is, it's important. Someone said to me, what about your staff? They can say, look, you are pressuring them to do Bible studies. Now, the thing is, I offered them free lunch, and it's optional. You don't have to come. But I also have a really good relationship with all my staff. They're like family. They do not want to ever leave our office, so I'm not worried about it. But the thing is, I think it's part of it is personality. I'll be honest, it's just personality. Like, I just don't worry about these things. I'll give you an example. I have this husband and wife I did 2 Bible studies with. They're from Pakistan. So you get these people on Facebook. Hello, sir. How are you? Hello. There's an orphanage here. Can you help send money? The problem is you start dialoguing with some of them, and they are genuinely good people. They're Adventist and need help, and you start having to send money over there. You know what I mean? There's a gal my wife and I are supporting in Africa. There's a pastor in Cuba where I just kind of have to ignore them. But there was a guy kept sending me messages, but I was looking at his wall, and I was like, okay, I felt impressed to communicate with them. He just became Adventist 6 months ago. He goes, we want to know. They want to study the Bible. So I did 2 Bible studies with him and his wife, but I don't have time. So I asked my friends if they would give Bible study to them, a husband and wife, and they said they would. But just recently, the husband doesn't feel comfortable. He doesn't feel comfortable. He's just kind of, some people are just wary. They're just uncomfortable. They just feel like, who are these people? So I said, no problem, and I just found someone else too. You know what I mean?
Was he a Muslim?
They were Catholic, living over there. A similar story. We were feeding the homeless. I'm the outreach director of our church, so we're feeding the homeless, and these 2 church members come to me and they go, this homeless guy wants Bible studies. Well, I already know who the guy was. I knew he wanted Bible studies. And I said, would you guys be willing to give him Bible studies? Well, the first thing, it's no woman should be giving a man Bible studies. I'm like, well, we can make sure there's a guy with you. Oh, no. We could talk to Weimar. There might be students up at Weimar who could give Bible studies. And I just said, I just don't have time. I've got 20-something Bible studies. I'm looking for other people. And then they go, why are you giving so many Bible studies? I said, because the harvest is plentiful and the laborers are few. And I was getting a little bit frustrated. If you don't want to help, that's okay. But, don't ask me why I'm giving Bible studies. And then my friend walked by. She's like this little Korean gal. And I said, hey, Mina, this guy needs Bible studies. Will you give him Bible studies? She goes, I've been praying for Bible studies. Yes. She was so excited. So you get the point that I'm making? I'm like, who do you think God's going to bless with more divine appointments? This little girl who's excited to give Bible studies, or these 2 people who are making excuses? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back. So the thing is, I don't even think about it. And I don't even worry about it. To be honest, I'm like, I'll share a story with you. I'll share a story. I used to do, instead of just giving Great Controversy, I used to do a Great Controversy survey that my brother came out with. And it worked really, really well, where they're like, I want to read that book. Okay? And I'm not going to go through the survey, but I did it with this one male gentleman who told me, we were talking about Paradise. He's from Paradise. I go, we're talking about the fires, and he mentions the Adventist hospital. I'm like, what? He knows the Adventist hospital? So I totally canvassed him with the survey, gave him a Great Controversy. Now I want to give one to his wife, who's in the hygiene room. And when she was done with her visit, I had her come into my office, and I gave her the survey. Long story short, she gave the book back to my front desk. She called the Department of Health on me, and she wrote me, and she did all this stuff, and I'm just like, wow. I'm just being persecuted here by this lady who I'm trying to save her soul. I just gave it to the Lord. I was just glad she didn't write me a bad review online, because reviews matter for us. We're blessed with good reviews, and I don't want a bad review. Well, I think God shielded us, because 4 months later, a bad review popped up from her. Okay? And it was not nice, and it just makes me look like a psychopath. Okay? But you know what? I got down on my knees and I prayed. And then you know what? My fear and just went away. I had nothing to worry about. You know why? On the flip side, it's the first time in my life I've been persecuted. I'm just like, praise God. Okay, I'm being persecuted. God's in control. If God can make a donkey talk, do you think God can cover the eyes of people who are looking at that review? Of course he could. So 10 years ago, that would have floored me because we really guard our reviews and we get more patients into our office because of our reviews than anything else. So the reviews matter to me. But now I'm like, why do I need to worry about the reviews? God's the one who sets up kingdoms. He puts down kingdoms. And through this experience, I was so happy that I just don't even care about the scathing review on there. I don't even care. So that is, yeah.
Your coworkers, your staff, or even the patients
Yeah.
can call you out and like what happened to you. So that's
Yeah.
where it's like, how do you balance that?
So, I think God did it at the right time where my faith is grown enough now I just don't care. You know what I mean? Because before it would have bothered me a lot. So I don't even care, and I'm just like, I'm happy. That review doesn't even bother me at all. It's funny. It's almost like finally I get persecuted for something. Because I've always been persecuted for doing bad things. Like I always got what I deserved. Finally, I got something for something I didn't deserve, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So, yeah. So I'm thankful that I don't care. But it could be a problem. So that's the reason why now I just give them the book with my phone number in it. I don't do the survey. Plus, it takes too much time doing the survey. Instead, I just give the book, and I go, hey, this is one of my favorite books, and I've had no issues. If they don't want it, they can just throw it away. But I make a point of it to make sure I give it to them when they're happy. Not like I just pulled out 4 wisdom teeth and they're hurting, and I'm like, hey, I want you to have this book. I make sure I do it when they're happy. Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could send your notes to them, or how would we get your notes from today? And
Sure.
then YouTube or Audioverse, you said you had all these other messages. Are you on those doing these different messages?
Okay. If you go to Audioverse and you put my name in, there's a handful of messages that I've done. And one of them, so you can just listen to those. If you go to my church's Open Door Adventist Fellowship, if you go on there, I speak on there. There's a few sermons I've done on there, and you can find me on there. Yeah. Yeah, you can. There's ones on, like one of your church members just told me. He was like, hey, I heard your message on from our church on literature evangelism. So yeah, you can see that one on there.
And then can you give us the information about the Bridge 3.0?
I'll be glad to. Yeah. Yes.
So you're speaking a lot about your experience as someone who owns your business, and I think that's a little bit different category than someone who's working under someone else.
For sure.
You said we don't want to talk about religion or politics, those are controversial things. So what do you recommend for those people?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And the thing is, like for example, Ricky, the black gentleman whose son was a boxer, he just became converted because he saw the actions of someone else who was just consistent in just the way he led his life. You know what I mean? And so there's nothing like that. I've heard stories where some doctors, they'll just carry a glow track right here, or they'll just leave it on their desk, or they'll leave it in places where some might be like, oh, what's that? You go, oh, you can have it if you want. You know what I mean? And so for sure, it's challenging when you're not in a place, and most of you probably are in a place where you can't just have that flexibility. You know what I mean? But it's amazing, just like the girl I met at the airport. It's like God will open doors and he'll close doors. And so my thing is I'm just trying to be winsome and come across, because the thing is, most likely they're going to know you're a Christian, right? They're going to know you're a Christian, and they should know you're a Christian. But are they going to think that you're a weird Christian or you're a winsome Christian? And that's what I see a lot of times is, because when we're hanging out with someone who's Jehovah's Witness, all of a sudden, if someone goes, there's Jehovah's Witness, are you like, hey, all right? Or are you kind of like, there's already a wall between you and the Jehovah's Witness too, right? And we kind of have to see it that way as well. And my thing is just trying to build those bridges between them. And I can't give you that much information because that's just not the situation that I'm in. But even on the airplane, all the time, I fly in all the time. And I'm just trying to connect with them and talk about things that we can connect on. In the airplane, if I don't think I'm going to ever see them again, sometimes I get their contact information because they were like, oh, we want to do this. I want to join you for paddleboarding. I'm like, oh, here's my number, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. But if not, at the end, I'll just give them a book. I'll give them a book, or I'll give them a glow track with my number in it, sometimes without it. A lot of times without it, and I just hand them the book. And I just want to get that in them. And I just trust God that God will do something special in their life. Yes?
When you're sharing, and someone asks you, what church do you go to,
It always depends on the situation. I go, I'm Protestant Christian, if they're not probing. But the thing is, sometimes they're deliberately asking, like, what denomination are you? Do you know what I'm saying? And if they're really asking what denomination that you are, sometimes I will just tell them I'm Seventh-day Adventist. Yeah. But that's like, for call porters, when they go knocking on someone's door, that's the question they don't want to be asked. You know what I mean? Because automatically it can build walls, but a lot of times you'd be surprised they don't even know what a Seventh-day Adventist is. Oh, I like that, Bible-believing Sabbath keeper, you know. Or a lot of people will say things like, we're very much like Methodists, but we go to church on Saturday.
Oh, good. So the other question is, all the baptisms that you've had and you shared during first service, what's the follow-up for these people?
Great question.
Who's doing,
So with a number of them, I'm still doing Bible studies with them because there's no shortage of things to learn. And I'm doing that because I want to keep maintaining a relationship with them and building bridges. One of the guys that I baptized this week, so, I mean, I'll just be honest with you. He's 14 years old. He's 14 years old, and he struggles with, he struggles with things that 14-year-old boys struggle with. So I got him a really good book, and it's really helping him. And I said, hey, and we keep in touch, but I said, hey, look, I'm so busy right now. What if I put you in touch with somebody else who can continue giving Bible studies? He goes, yeah. So I'm going to put him in touch with this kid who's about 18 or 19 who's on fire for the Lord. And so, but I do believe that follow-up is very, very important. And so for me, at this point, I'm just doing Bible studies with them, continuing to do Bible studies with them.
So I really like the concept of how you're the Bible study person and you take them all the way to baptism. I feel that a lot more churches should do it that way because then you're invested in that. But so like people who are doing that are not quote unquote elders or pastors, what's your advice on that?
Oh, so what a lot of pastors don't realize is if you're an elder, you can baptize with the pastor's permission. So I was with a church. I was with a church where the pastor was not aware of that, and there was a little issue between the associate pastor and the main pastor, and it had to go to the conference. And the conference goes, no, I mean, the associate pastor should be able to baptize. I'm not even a pastor, I'm an elder. But I only discovered this because the local pastor, he said that if I approve, the conference is okay with you baptizing. That only made it more special for me. And he goes, it only makes sense that the person who led the Bible studies would do the baptism. So that just makes it that much more special for that person and for me. So I think that's a cool thing. But regardless, my thing is how do I get everyone excited about giving Bible studies? Because it is a special experience. When we get to heaven, what's the first thing you're going to want to do when you get to heaven? Do you want to check out your heavenly bank account and see how much riches you have stored up in heaven? Do you want to go check out the vistas or the swanky accommodations in heaven? What's the first thing you're going to want to do when you get to heaven? You're going to want to see your family and your friends. And the only other thing you're going to want to do is see Jesus. Those are the only two things that matter. So what are the only two things that matter while we're here? Is Jesus and people. But what are we accustomed to? Things, right? We're accustomed to things and places and stuff. And so for me, I want to make sure my personal core values has to do with my relationship with God, my relationship with people, and my third thing is health. Because health has a direct relationship with your first two things. And because I've been sick before, and when you're sick, you have one of my favorite quotes. He who has his health has 1,000 goals and dreams. He who is sick, he who does not have his health, has one dream or goal. It's to get better. And so for me, I realize how valuable health is. And the thing is, when you're sick and you're older, you become a burden to your family, to those people you love most. It's not just you who suffer, it's your family who suffers. I don't want to be a burden to my wife and kids. I want to be a blessing to them. And I realize the biggest blessing I can be to my loved ones is to be healthy for them. I don't want them changing my diaper. I want to be changing my grandson's diaper. You know what I mean? But a lot of people have this attitude of, I'm going to do whatever I want, and if I suffer the last 10 years of my life, who cares? That is a very selfish attitude. And so my personal core values has to do with those three things. And so then soul winning comes naturally if that's your core value. Core values is important because it's a motivator. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a motivator. Like I have a sweet tooth. I love sugar. But one of the strongest core value motivators is not to cut down on my sugar is health. because for those that I love, so that I can be a blessing, you know what I mean? So now I'm moderate about my sweets, because after a good meal, I like something sweet. Yes.
How do you fit your family into all of this schedule? I can't imagine your schedule.
So my schedule is odd because I'm there on the weekends. I fly up here Monday night. I work Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday night, I fly back. So Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights, I have back-to-back Bible studies at night. And then just the fact that, one of the families is a family of 5, I study with them together. That's 5 right there. And so another group is a group of 3. So trying to clump them makes the biggest difference. But the thing is, then I'm on the weekends. I'm home Thursday night till Monday. But lately, I've been getting so many, speaking invites and stuff all over. But usually I'll take off on Friday, so I come back on Sunday, back home. So I see them. But one good thing is my daughters are 14 and 16. They're teenagers. They're at the age where their friends are most important now. So it's at an age where things actually are working out just fine because, my wife and I, we connect plenty. And they want to be with their friends. And at their age, our job is to stay in our lanes. You know what I mean? And the thing is, I'm glad. My best advice for any parent is spend a lot of time with your kids when they're young. So we spent a lot of time together as kids. And for some reason, I was disillusioned and naive to think that my kids would be different from all the other kids. That means when they became teenagers, they would still be my best friend. Because my oldest was like my rock climbing buddy for 4 years. And all of a sudden, she quit rock climbing, and now she's into, volleyball with her school friends and doing her school thing. So it's fine. It was like, But, it is what it is. They're teenagers, and people tell us they'll come back when they get older. But we have a good relationship with them. So they're at the age, and the thing is, people do ask all the time, but, my kids, because of Army Bible Camp, they used to go to conferences like this all the time. So now at this age, they're not like, can we go to the conference? Not unless it's in Hawaii. They don't really care to go, you know what I mean?
What about your wife? Does she do all this exercise and marathons and all these things?
She's the total opposite. She likes to walk the dog. Walking's her favorite exercise. She doesn't like to do crazy stuff like that. But the nice thing is that she's not a worrier. She totally trusts me. She's an introvert. And she's like, she knows that's my medicine. That makes me happy. Right, Steve? You understand that. We go out there, that's our medicine. We're in a happy place. She knows I'm happier, and I come back happier, so she totally supports me. She doesn't worry one bit. But she knows I'm very careful and safe. I'm not like reckless. So, yeah. It's all relative.
So, you know how you kept saying timing, and obviously Bible wisdom, timing is everything, right? But yet when you're passing out like the clothes and the great controversy, like to the drivers and all that, I mean, you don't have any other moment than right then.
Exactly.
So you're talking timing in terms of long-term timing. The short-term, there is no timing. You just got to do it right then and there.
Such a good question. Yeah, I just determined, is it a short-term contact or I'm going to meet him again? If I'm going to meet him again, the last thing I want to do is give him a book or something that all of a sudden puts up a wall. But if I'm never going to see him again, I want to give them something. And that's how it is for most of the people, right? Like once you get used to handing stuff out, it's very dissatisfying not to have something to give to somebody. So I've gone into the store to get a smoothie, forgot, and go back to the car and get something, and to get it to him because it's satisfying. Now, I understand the science behind it. It's all about dopamine. When you do something on your to-do list, you get a hit of dopamine. Ding! That's why it's satisfying when you complete a task. When you're running a marathon, every time you finish a mile, you get a hit of dopamine. And when you hit 26 miles, then you get a really good hit of dopamine. It's all about the pleasure and reward system. Same thing with glow tracks. When you give that and you leave that on a car, you get a sense of satisfaction. It's very rewarding. God designed it that way. Our pleasure center. I mean, there's science backs it up. fMRI technology shows that when you do acts of altruism, kindness, it's rewarding. Same reward as food and sex. So that's why it's rewarding. It feels good to help people. And so I find it very, very satisfying to do that and just get into a regular habit of doing it.
So what do you have any particular go-tos like for the short-term contact? What kinds of things would you share with them if you're not going to see them again?
Great question. Great question because a lot of people don't even know what glow tracks are. My question, do you know what a glow track is? Oh, you know what a glow track is? Okay. I've had people. So my go-to is either these. I carry these whenever I'm flying back and forth. I stick a stack in my luggage. I have boxes in my garage, and then I just grab a handful, and I have them in my car. I have them everywhere, so I can just give that to them. And for me, if I'm only going to see them one time, I'd rather give them the whole bundle right here. So this is my favorite. And then glow tracks are stuff I just like to, tip when you leave a tip, whatever, get a smoothie. I handed this to a smoothie girl, and she was like, I read these. She goes, I read them, and then I give them to my mom because I don't have a church to go to. And she goes, you can leave some over there. And I went to my car, got more, and I said, how come you don't have a church? And she started sharing. And I was like, if you're interested, I would love to give you Bible studies. And I gave her my contact information. She hasn't contacted me yet, but I'm just excited. And I gave her more glow tracks because she actually reads them. Now, not everyone's going to say that. Most people are like, oh, thanks, okay. Some people will, no thanks. But
do you just give them a random one? Because there's so many different choices.
that's a great question. That's a great question. Oh, what a guy. I love it. I love it. A lot of times when I come to churches, I'll actually bring a whole bunch. Oh, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Big glow track area out there.
Okay, I love the question you asked because it's a commonly asked question. I asked the glow lady myself at the glow headquarters, and she said the same thing that everyone says. It doesn't matter what glow you use, God will use it. He'll use all of them. So because the question is, which one should I buy? Do I buy the one on addiction or on God's love? Or which one? There's so many. God will use all of them. She told me sometimes they don't even read the glow track. They just see the free offer for Bible studies on the back and they'll call in. They didn't even read the glow track. So it's like, I just carry 5 random different ones, and depending on the situation. Now the ones I hand out, I do like the one that says a gift for you, because it doesn't say anything about God on the cover, right? It's easier to hand something that says promise of peace instead of does God care? Or the one I don't like to hand people is breaking addiction. Like it's almost like assuming you look like you got an addiction problem. Or the one about losing weight. You know what I mean? It's like, here. And I have friends, they elected to give out 2, one on health and one on Bible truth. And so it's random. Everyone has their different ways. For me, at the airport, in Sacramento Airport, I had handed out enough of these at the TSA that this lady was checking my bag. And when she was done, I go, I have a book for you. And she goes, you're the dentist who's given out these books. So I guess I have a reputation there. And she goes, I saw one on the table. She goes, I took it. So, so now I'm like, okay, I'll lay off with the TSA at the Sacramento Airport for a little while until, there's a new crop, you know what I mean? But anyways, but yeah, I find it fun. And I'm just like you. There are some times when I feel nervous or uncomfortable to give it to them. But I'm getting more and more so where I'm just like, the more you do it, you just get more bold about it. Because in light of eternity, you wish you had handed out more. That's the only regret we're going to have in heaven, if there is regret, that we didn't do more. Well, we could have. And so I'm like, I want to do as much as I can while I can. Yes?
Do you recommend as a church to put a label with your local church on it, or just to have them mark the local?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. I haven't thought much about that. Okay, I'll tell you one story. I heard this years ago. Don't do glow at Costco, because Costco's complained that there's just too much glow tracks everywhere. So I don't glow at Costco. I don't hardly ever go to Costco. You know what I mean? Because then now all of a sudden you're like kind of like, that casts a negative image. At my local church, they've done that. Well, I would say yes if there's someone to follow up with it. And your church has enough people to follow up. That would be a blessing. I think that would be a great blessing. That's the reason why I write my phone number in the great controversies when I give them out when I can to my patients so they call me back. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. All right. Yes.
I've been called to a new beginner's class that I'm a member of. I have some ideas about what I'm going to be doing and where to start, but I would like to hear your presentation.
When you say a new beginner's class, what do you mean, like giving Bible studies to the new members who are coming?
It's going to follow after each of our seminars. So we usually do 2 big seminars a year. So it'd be continuing on their learning of all the truths that they
Oh, that's fantastic. Because I don't think we have enough. I think that's one of the problems for churches. We don't have enough discipling, and we don't have doing that. To me, I find nothing. I'll be happy to give you my email address and give you my contact information. But I can't think of anything better than getting them actively plugged in. Because we already know the basic stuff. They got to make 7 connections. You know what I mean? Your church seems like a very healthy church. I go to a lot of churches. It's rare to see a church when I pull in Sabbath school and the parking lot is already full. It's incredible. And you got so many people here who are so active. This is a healthy church. This is a great church for people to get plugged into. But they do need to get plugged in and need to get active and find a role and find a ministry. I think there's nothing better than being involved in ministry that keeps you. One of the things they say about kids who stay in the church in their 20s and they don't leave the church, one is they got involved in ministry. So I think it's very important. So all those things, they need to make a connection. And so I would love to just share resources with you, but I think if you can get them and disciple them to look for ways for them to start reaching out to others, whether it's just with as simple as Glow, or it's as simple as starting to look for Bible studies and give their first Bible studies, because I find giving Bible studies to be very addicting. It's very addicting. Years ago, Jesus gives many metaphors for soul winning. One is the farmer. Another metaphor that Jesus gives is the fisherman. And it's such an apt metaphor. Years ago, my dad told me that he read that when a fisherman catches a fish and he catches that fish on the line, it's $1 million feeling for a fisherman. I haven't experienced that $1 million feeling. For me, it's a $10 feeling because I'm not really into fishing. But I've gone to Alaska with a bunch of fish crazy friends of mine. They went fish crazy. 6 a.m, they're out fishing. I'm getting up at 9 o'clock. We have brunch. They're going right back to go fishing all day long. And the thing is I was reading on the internet about what it's like. They go, it's like a drug. It's like an electric moment. I feel like I'm 12 years old. That's what it feels like when you ask somebody, hey, do you want a Bible study? And they say yes. I literally just act calm and cool, and then I go back to my office, and I'm just like, God, thank you. It's that exciting. You know what I'm saying? Because it's really like literally catching a fish. And so, if they can get hooked into sharing and evangelism, there's nothing like that for them to stay really active. Because what happens to your typical person? After they come to a seminar, they just come to church, and a lot of them just slowly kind of fade away. So I love it that you guys have a new beginners class. I can't think of anything better than to get them hooked on soul winning. Now, real quick, before I used to tell people, one time out of every 4 to 5 people I would ask if they want a Bible study, I get a yes. Now, that's not bad. You cast a line 4 to 5 times and you catch a fish, that's pretty good odds, right? I was telling that to a girl. She heard my talk. She heard a small section of the talk I gave earlier. She goes, Calvin, I asked 4 people, all 4 of them said yes. She goes, I'm at 100%. And I was like, well, God bless you. Your odds are better than mine. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, unless you ask, they're not going to say yes. And it's amazing how people are like, wow. Even a friend of mine, he's a dentist. He goes, I asked 2 people. They said yes. And he realized all he had to do was ask people. Yes?
Just really quick, because I know people will have questions for you. Can you tell us how we get a hold of the World Crisis books?
Okay. I'm going to give you his name's Roy Dennis. And you want to email him at Jan, Jan, Dennis, just Dennis the Menace, Dennis, Jan Dennis at live.com. Just message him and say, hey, Calvin Kim was at our church. He shared about the Great Controversy Ministry. Could you send me? But you need to specify so he doesn't send you 1,000, because you don't want 700 of them sitting in your garage for the next 3 years. So just ask him for a box of 100 or 200, and then he'll mail it to you and tell him you want the abridged version. He'll tell you where you can donate it to his church. So I just think it's wonderful what he's doing. They're getting thousands of Great Controversies out everywhere.
You got the Jan Dennis at
Live, L-I-V-E, live.com.
Anytime, any tips on awkward moments? Like, just smooth it over. Like, you're like, hey, you did the prayer one well. Like, you're like, oh, I'm not going to pray for people else to depend on that. But, like, let's say you're like, hey, you want Bible study, but the timing was wrong. You read the situation wrong. And now it's like, so you just smooth it over with, like, a light, fun thing to say, or, like, how do you come out of that?
Well, even when you guys are asking me questions, do you know what I'm doing when you're asking me questions? I'm praying all the time. I'm just like, Lord, give me the answer to say. So I was at the airport, and I was talking to one of my Bible study contacts. And he goes, my aunt is on the other line. My aunt wants to know why you believe Michael is Jesus. Now, I don't know why it's such a big deal, but for non-Adventists, it's a really big deal that we believe Michael is Jesus because they believe that it's another archangel. So he wants me to explain it. Well, I've done the study before. It's not hard to explain, but I couldn't remember. It's been a while since I've done the study. And he goes, I'm going to patch you through right there. And she goes, we go right to Jude. And about a reviling accusation against, Moses did not bring a reviling accusation against, and right there I'm caught on the spot. And I'm like, right before she was transferring, I'm like, God, tell me what to say. And right there, they said, we need to board the plane. And I said, I need to board the plane right now. And I said, but let me send you a link. So on my phone, I just Googled up. On Amazing Facts, you can find all these great study guides. I just typed in Michael is Jesus, whatever, study guide, and it popped up. And I sent her the link. And as soon as I got on the plane, I reread the thing. And it came right back to me. It's very easy to defend. And so I was saved by the proverbial bell. But all I can say is the best thing is whenever there's a question coming to me, I'm always just like, Lord, give me the words to show me how to respond. Because sometimes I know how to respond, sometimes I won't. I just ask God to give me the words to respond. So even when you guys are asking me questions, I'm like, Lord, give me the right way to respond.
Because you exercise so much, have you found that you really don't need much sleep?
I like my sleep. You know what? Okay. When I was in high school, one time I stayed up almost an entire week. Maybe 3-4 hours of sleep that entire week. At the end of that week, my mouth was in pain. I think my body was shutting down. Okay, I was at camp meeting. We were having too much fun, and we just, Sue knows, we'd go to camp meeting. We'd have so much fun. I literally stayed up almost an entire week. Now, in college, I could stay up for 3 nights in a row, no problem, in dental school. And my friend in dental school, he told me, he goes, when you get into your 30s, you can't do this. And I was thinking, why not? Well, he was right. When I got my 30s, it got harder. But still, when you climb mountains, we're up all night. We're climbing mountains all night long. That's when you climb mountains, when it's cold. And so I got used to it. But I'm 48 now. Now it's painful when I don't sleep all night. I'll still do it for a big adventure, because we do. But at my age now, I like 7 hours minimum. I like 8 hours. But what I do is I usually go to bed. I like to be in bed by 11:30. But I just get up when God wakes me up. So it'll be sometimes 4. This morning it was 4. I just woke up at 4 and I'm wide awake, and then I start praying. And I have my devotions. Sometimes at 5, it's at 5:30. So it just depends on when. So that's just, I got in the habit. So it's great because, when after your 40s, you know how you just kind of randomly wake up and wide awake at a certain time? I just get up and start praying and having devotions at that time. So it just depends. Yeah. So, so no, I do like my sleep. All right. Hey, here's glow tracks. So hey, don't be shy. I'll leave them right here. You guys take it. Okay, let's pray. All right? Dear Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you so much, Lord, that you've called us to be co-laborers with you, your hands and your feet, so that we can experience the joy in souls redeemed. Just pray that you continue to pour your Spirit upon this very special church, and every member here get to be an active soul winner for you. Pray that you continue to bless all that they put their hand to. I just ask that you would write each of our names in the book of life, and that one day soon we will be together in your kingdom on the sea of glass. All this we pray in Jesus' precious name. Amen. All right. Thank you, everyone. It was a blessing to be with you guys. You guys are wonderful.